And we're live. I'm joined today by Simon Andreucetti, and this is another episode of Off the Lead and on the road, because we are... Where are we, Simon?
We are in Distilled SCH, which is in Golden Lane in Dublin 8.
Okay, and Distilled SCH, who or what are they?
So Distilled SCH are a company that basically came together as a joint venture in 2016, or end of 2015, 2016. And basically what it is that distilled media that would be known as Daft and Adverts and the Journal basically came together with Dundeal.ie. Dundeal.ie was ran by a company, a family in Wexford, a husband and wife, Ger and Fred, and they basically set up Dundeal, and an opportunity came after a separate buyout to basically do business together with the guys from Distilled Media. So now we have this happy family that's sitting in a new media group, which is Dundeal, Adverts and Daft. So it's pretty exciting.
Is Boards still in there?
Boards.ie? Yeah, so Boards is still owned by the guys, but it's ran as a separate entity. So it's not within the Distill group. So it's still there. It's still a massively popular website, and the Journal is in the same building, but they're outside of the group as well. So we work all together, but we all share our resources and work together. So it's very cool.
Savage. And just to give people listening a bit of an insight into how you ended up coming here, we worked together once upon a time for our sins in Aircom.
The glory times.
The glory times. The good old days.
And the peaks of 2009. When you couldn't sell a house, or you couldn't think, but there was one place that could take us in, was Aircom.
It was Aircom, yeah. God fucking help us. I hated that place with an absolute undying passion. I still wake up at night kind of worrying that I have to go in the morning. Like,
it's like, remember, you had to get the 30 calls in, and it was a case of, that was our only KPI every week, was to make sure you rang the 30 clients. And as you lost more and more interest in the company, you'd just be making things up. And like, oh yeah, rang Mr. Joe Blog there. His broadband's working fine, and he just asked, could I get a call back in 2 weeks' time? And you're like, job's done. Thanks, Aircom.
After that...
Sorry, Air.
Air, yeah. Jesus.
We have to remember the rebranding.
Oh, God, there's nothing that company can do that will make me hate them any more than I already do. But, give them time.
Oh.
So we were working there together 2009, and I actually moved on to Daft, which in a weird way was actually these offices here. So it's kind of cool to be back here on my own terms in a weird way. Yeah. But you were with Aircom for another while.
I was with Aircom so my stint in Aircom, literally Aircom was like, I was working with myhome.ie before Aircom, and I was literally working there when the crash kicked in. Not a great place in the world to be working when a recession comes in, which is mainly driven by property. So there was obviously some downturns in the business, and actually, funny enough, now, and credit to myself, it wasn't that I was made redundant. I got greedy. A company approached me at the time, and they offered me a ridiculously high wage.
Sorry, this is when you were with My Home?
When I was with My Home, yeah. So they offered me a ridiculously high wage. I don't even have this on my CV. I don't have it anywhere. They offered me a ridiculously high wage, and instead of me just staying in a comfortable position in myhome.ie, I jumped ship and went across to this company, and it was a print media company. Blindsided as a young... God, I must have been only... I'd say I was only 26. I think I was only 26. I don't know. Went over there, blindsided by money, went over, and it was the worst mistake I ever made. 3 months after, job didn't work out, and of course I was out of my year, and I didn't have anything to work. But the following week, I had an interview straight away with Aircom, and the next day they offered me a job. So I was like, when are you free to work? And I was like, Aircom says, we don't need you to start to the first of next month. So I basically just took a month off and sat at home, and that was my only time where it's the closest thing to ever being redundant. But the minute I was only 2 days after being redundant, I knew I was going to have a job starting a job the next month on the 1st. So it was great, and that's when I started Aircom in 2000 and I don't know what it was. I think it's either 2007 or it would have been 2009. I don't know when we were in Aircom.
Well, it was post crash, so the arse fell out of the
so it's
construction.
2009, 2010.
Yeah,
around about that.
You've been in that kind of... So sorry, you were with My Home, you went to that other crowd, didn't work out, went to Aircom, you were doing account management with myself.
Doing account management, yeah, and then it was a case of working away in account management, and everything was going fine. A good laugh in there, made some good friends, that's all I would take from it. But then my old sales manager from when I was younger, Gavin O'Brien, we worked together in CBG, Car Buyer's Guide, and he basically was a new sales commercial manager for a company called Grad Ireland, and I went into working in Grad Ireland. And what Grad Ireland was doing was they were a publishing company, print and online, and what they did was they worked with all the major IT companies, or actually they worked with all the major companies that wanted to have a graduate program. So they would go in and advise and work with the recruitment teams to help them bring graduates into their business. So that was pretty cool. Lots of experience coming through there. But the great thing about that was you were working with like the big four, working with all the IT giants, working with everyone, and kind of going into so anyone from IBM up to Intel, to work out with Google, Facebook, the whole lot, and trying to help them recruit graduates. Because even though you think that, I never realised everybody just wants to. It doesn't matter what degree or what the principle, what you studied. They just basically wanted you if you had a 2-1, and that was a real eye opener.
And again, for people who wouldn't be familiar with what a 2-1 is.
So a 2-1 degree. So a 2-1 degree or a first degree, I suppose. First being the highest level degree you can get when you're doing a degree in college, and then a 2-1 is the next grade down. So that's all that employers at the time were interested about. It was just a case they were just chasing, and our job in Grad Ireland was to help get the companies in front of them. Kind of rambling on a little bit, but that again, I was there for actually 3 years, and it was during those 3 years then, again, just kind of ploughing through the recession. You know, was I happy with money? I was not. It was just a case of it was a job, and I suppose in those times you just had to focus on more of doing things for the sake of doing them. But then I got a phone call one day from an old friend that I used to work with in myhome.ie. Always kept my connections, and Michal Scully, and he asked me to go and have a cup of coffee with him. And within a month later, I was working for Dundeal.ie.
But Grad Ireland, it's still in that kind of digital world, say.
Yeah.
Very much so, like.
Yeah.
So you never really, like, was that, like you were with Car Buyer's Guide, was that your first dabble with the kind of online world?
Yeah, it was. So Car Buyer's Guide started out when I was 23, and it was very much, I went in there and I was working on print, but that's when I started working on digital. And I don't know what it was about it. It was just like, it was working with it and seeing how quick it could go up, and after you did something, how quick the change you'd have, and watching how people interacted with it. And straight away I was drawn into digital, drawn into working with websites. Digital marketing wasn't even a term then. It was just like, I suppose back then, if you asked someone to have their stock up on a website, or they thought their stuff was going to be their stock was going to be advertised across the country in a couple of minutes, or I suppose a couple of maybe a half an hour back then, it was a case of they just basically thought it was witchcraft. But
even now, hearing you say that, like you said minutes and then you said, oh no, it was probably half an hour. Like to me now and to everyone else listening, like what the fuck did it take it so long? Half an hour for it to go national? Like what the fuck?
Yeah, it was just like to get the videos or get the images live when you think about it, because we all take it for granted now that when we click on something that it's just live straight away. It wasn't always like that. The servers were not in the way that they are now. It wasn't a case of that you went on and you switched your phone on and it connected to the internet straight away, or like you didn't even have half the technology that you had on your phone back then. There was no YouTube. Facebook was only kind of starting off. There was no Twitter, and I think people forget about how young these companies are. So when you're working on a company like that, and you have to appreciate companies like CBG are out now, and they're still out there and they're doing their business. And then you've got companies like CarZone, and even Daft when it started off. And even looking at that, like when I spoke to Brian and Eamon about this before, who set up Daft, like the way they used to get the photographs up onto the site is that an estate agent used to send them an envelope with £50 in it, and they used to have the details of like how, and then they typed it in themselves and put it up. And that's what it was like in CBG. It was like you didn't have people logging into the back end of the website and uploading their cars and doing it all themselves. The dealers rang in and said, right, I want to have my cars in, and it was a team of people, and it was their job to, like, I remember one of my friends a good few of my friends worked on the team, and it was theirs, like, literally taking photographs. A photographer went out, took photographs of the cars for the dealers, brought the photographs into the offices in Sandyford. Then someone would take the photographs off the digital camera, put them onto like one computer with all the photographs. Then all the photographs have to be named. Then the photographs have to be uploaded manually, and the car description would have to be put in for each one of the jobs. And then those cars. So like to get what takes now with Dundeal, and to get their stock up on site, what it takes like literally seconds. It used to be like a day or two's work to get the same product that's up there now.
Yeah, well,
and it's just like it's phenomenal. Like it's phenomenal when you think about how quick it is now.
Like, it was literally only earlier on today I put an ad up on Dundee for my mum. She's selling her couch, so you know, cream leather corner couch or whatever. She sent me the photos up via WhatsApp and included the description and the dimensions and all the rest of it. And I'm receiving this, saying to myself, would have been fucking easier for her to do it herself, like. And I was passing the house and I called in and I said, listen, I'm going to actually do this here in front of you to show you how easy it is.
Yeah.
She had Dundee on her phone from just browsing or whatever. She hit the menu button, hit the place ad button. It asked her for her photos immediately. She had them on her phone. She put them in. She had the price, you know, copy and pasted all the details from the WhatsApp message she sent me into the ad. Boom, live. And I go, there you go. And she actually genuinely said, like, oh, right, that's it? And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, fucking hell, that's class. And it is. And, like, in such a short space of time, from needing practically a team of people to do that, you know, over a couple of days, to doing it yourself.
Yeah. And it's like, and on the, like, Dundee is such a success story, like, where it came from. And, you know, there's other companies out there that if they had a half a brain, they could have moved on the market, and there's some big companies that lost out on not making that move. And the most obvious one is the buy and sell. And buy and sell doesn't even exist anymore in Ireland.
It's gone, is it?
Yeah, it's officially gone now. So for a while there, the independent group bought it over. They bought it for a couple of million. I didn't even buy it for a couple of million. I think it was like 300,000. It was anybody's. You could have got it with a credit union loan, and it was up for grabs. But they missed a trick, and they did very well. Where at one stage in their peak, they had, like, you know, two weekly papers, and they had regional papers going on. And sure, like, you weren't even buying anything, you'd pick up the buy and sell just in case. But the other company everyone always forgets about, that they missed out on the classifieds, and more so probably the ones that have a bigger turn in their body and their side, is the independent group, because they had the Herald. The Herald was the premium when it came to classifieds. They had it sewn up. They had it like, if you were selling a car and you wanted to get into both the evening and the later edition newspaper, it used to cost you a fortune. And then people used to rush out to the shops on a Wednesday to get the paper, because that's when the fresh ads came out. Yeah. And when you think about it, those ads will be there for 3 days.
Is that why they have what was it called? The people, I used to work in a shop, so people used to ask for the city final. Is that what did they release two papers a day?
There was at one stage in the papers, when they were, like, I suppose when they were, like, when it was as popular as it was and it was selling out, there used to be 2 editions of the Herald, and that's when you knew. When the Herald used to be an evening edition, that's how much
the
revenue.
city final, I think.
The city, and it was like, that just goes to show you how much advertising revenue that was coming out. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that a paper exists for, the only reason is basically for media advertising, and it's a case of, okay, it's a source of information. But it was a case of they could blood it out, and they had enough information going on, and they had enough content, and obviously what content is driven by is media spend, and they could invest to have an extra publication coming out. And I can imagine how much money it's like. Kind of gone slightly off track as well. It's like when they used to have that free paper that used to be handed out every day in Dublin. It would have been when we were in Aircom.
Used to be. It's not a thing anymore. That's
gone now as well.
Right.
And that was just advertising driven as well.
Of course.
So, but going back to the classifieds, the independents, I would say that they are the ones that they feel most hard done by not moving their business online at a specific time, and being too focused on print, because there was so much money to be made in print. But the thing is that if you always focus on the money when you have a business, and you're in a transitional state of period like that, where it's a case of, right, I can keep doing what I'm doing now, and we'll keep plodding along, and we'll keep making our money X amount each month. We'll probably grow the margin a little bit. But if your user behavior starts changing, i.e. going online, then you need to adapt your business. And all these companies that were making their money off print didn't see the shift. They either ignored the shift or didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. But Dundee came along, and they basically just made it very simple for people to buy things online amongst itself, and basically created Ireland's largest marketplace. And I mean for everything. And I mean, like, from livestock to sheep to cows, chickens to furniture to cars, tractors, bicycles. And the funny thing is, when you look at the data that's behind Dundee, that's one thing that's always amazed me from the minute I came into the company, like, is that when you look into the analytics behind it, like if we were to add up all our traffic together, you would have an uncountable number. It'd be more people, 10 times the amount of traffic that is the amount of people that live in the country would be on the website. But what you learn is that you've got 60,000 people that come in and look at bicycles every month. But then you've got, like, in the tractors, you've got 125,000 people that are going over looking at tractors. Then in cars, you've got like 600,000 people looking at cars. Cars will be a main focus because cars are something that everybody is interested in buying. But then you've all these little splinter eco groups going on within the site. Like, there's enough traffic there where you could probably have a standalone bicycle website for selling used bikes. There's enough traffic there going to the agriculture side that you could probably have a standalone agricultural. And all these other websites exist. But what Dundee did was it brought it all together underneath one umbrella where people just go to. And it turned into a saying as well, it's a done deal. You know, you'd go on.
Did it?
What?
Which came first? The saying, it's a done deal?
No, the name came from the saying. The name of the company came from the saying, yeah.
They were good, they weren't that good.
We were no Halo.
Oh, fucking brilliant.
Will I flick that off the heating there? Or
No, I'm okay if you're alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's gone.
Okay.
What was I going to say? So, you've been immersed in the digital world, 10 plus years, say. And you touched on something there, like you were saying about Dundee, even this. You have X amount, 100,000 people are looking at bikes. X amount, 100,000 people are looking at tractors. I know, like, I've sold a telescope on Dundee.
Yeah.
I've bought hydroponic growing material on Dundee. Like, there's fucking everything and anything on it. But noticing how many people are in different groups, like, I'm surprised. Like, what was the figure you said on bikes, roughly speaking?
No, it's roughly, because it's one thing that always, you kind of, after working on it for years, the numbers kind of stand out with you. So if you were to look at just the bike section, we're actually clicking on the icon bike section every month to go in and look specifically at bikes. You're looking around 60,000 people. Okay,
so 60,000 people, and roughly on tractors, say, or
tractors is actually quite big. So tractors is, I think it's over 300,000.
Okay, so to me now, that's fascinating. Being in a position whereby you can tell maybe not what percentage of the population, but you have the fucking figures. You have the raw data on, like, put it this way, if you were to have asked me what's more popular on Dundee, bicycles or tractors, I would have said bicycles, obviously, by a massive margin, because everyone's buying bikes or looking at bikes. I own a bike. Most of my mates own a bike. I've probably bought 2 or 3 bikes in my lifetime. I'm never going to buy a fucking tractor.
Yeah.
So I would have assumed that bicycles, there was a bigger market in bicycles than there would be for tractors, at least in eyeballs. Obviously, a tractor could cost 100 grand or whatever the fuck they cost, and a bicycle won't cost as much as that. But the point that I'm labouring to make here is the likes of the Distilled, SCH Group, and Dundee, and My Home, and all these other kind of digital agencies. It's the data that's the sweet spot for these companies, and they know the market better than the market knows itself, nearly, and they know their consumers better than they know themselves. And I've touched on this a couple of times in the podcast before, because it's fucking scary to a degree. You that's been submerged in the kind of digital world for God knows how long, what's your take on digital media and social media, etc.?
Okay, so just to kind of go back on a point, and maybe it's just the way you would say it, but the way we would look at it, and I suppose maybe I'm going to speak as in with the company voice, is that we don't look at it as in like that we know more than consumer, and we definitely don't look at it like we know more than the user. What we do is we look at the patterns and we see what the users want. So Dundee is different. That basically, the thinking about this is something that you'll know yourself now when you look at websites, right? The problem about a website is now that if a website becomes popular, you'll hear people that set up websites and like, right, I want to make a website, I want to make it profitable. And the first thing you think is, right, the minute I can make it profitable, I need to get up I need to get so many thousand unique users onto my website. I need to generate so many impressions. And then they make the mistake of tapping in advertising into it straight away. And that's all they're into it. If you design a website and your sole purpose is to make websites to make money, you're going to fail. And that's it, bottom out. But if you design a website and you focus on user experience, and the thing is that you need to focus on is not the what, you have to focus on the why. And that's key in all, I think, in all walks of business. And if you can focus on what is the business, why is your business there, what is your business, like why is your business going to help the user, why is it going to help the consumer, what is the purpose, and why are you going to do that? And if you focus on your business being a solution to what's out there, then that's how your business, and that's been the core strength and the core gold, and I suppose the goals within the company. So the way we are generating now, since the joint venture has happened, the Eamon and Brian Fallon and the company Distilled SEH have massively reinvested in all the websites. So they're massively invested in Daft, and they're focusing on that. I can't speak too much about Daft because I know it's a case of growing, but my main focus is obviously on Dundeel, and where I sit in my role is I focus on the motor department of Dundeel. So the way the business is actually broken up is that it's not a case of we look at the website separately. We look at the whole distilled. We look at motor, property, and general. So general, it would be across all websites. It would be across the Dundeel adverts, across the marketplaces. Property is Daft, and then motor is basically the motor channel in Dundeel, which is the highest and most visited area of the website. So that's the core area that we're focusing on the business at the moment. And I suppose it's a case of, we could say that we know the marketplace, but we know the marketplace because the marketplace uses us their first choice to go to sell cars. There's loads of competitors out there, and there always will be loads of other websites out there that are trying to sell cars and buy cars, and there'll be always other websites. There's particular websites out there that they have a presence for themselves, or because they've been around so long, and that's fine. And it's like they'll always be there. But the difference, what we're doing now, is instead of just trying to be another advertising platform, we are a solution. And we are going to change how people buy and sell cars in Ireland. And it's not that we're going to change it to suit us. We're just trying to help with the solution, because people aren't going to showrooms anymore. They're not going into like car dealerships. They're doing all their research online. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them the information they want. They don't want to be reading reviews after reviews after reviews. They want to read some reviews, but then they want the technical specs. They want the information that's going to help them take that purchase. And that's the direction that we're going with Dundeel. So it's a case of, just kind of go back to where I kind of got onto that. It's a case of, do we know everything about the consumer? No, but we're learning all the time. And what we're trying to do is mold our business into what they actually want, into their path.
There's a kind of a strange dichotomy there. Companies such as yourselves giving the consumer what they want. There's a fine line between giving the consumer what they want and dictating to the consumer what they want. And I suppose what I'm getting at there is, you're saying on one hand that people aren't going into showrooms, they're going online. So you've noticed this trend, and you're putting the showrooms online essentially, but you get to dictate what goes online. So if for example Dundeel decides for whatever reason, say hypothetically, that they don't like Volkswagen anymore, do they push the other brands more so? Or, again, hypothetically, Volkswagen aren't playing ball with you for whatever reason, and they say, no, like we're strong enough in the marketplace, we don't need someone like Dundeel, so we're not going to play ball, basically. So you say, okay, well, we'll just promote all the other brands, and then from the consumer's point of view, they just don't see as much of Volkswagen as they used to, and sales across Volkswagen's platform kind of drops. So you see the point I'm trying to make here. You're in a very...
Yeah, well, you see, that's the point. So the way you're basing that model on is the mistake what websites make all the time. They focus on the revenue. They focus on how they're going to monetize their website. So, for example, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to launch a whole new section on Dundeel, and it's called the New Car Showroom. And what the New Car Showroom is, that instead of looking for brands to partner with us, we've already gone and spoke to every manufacturer in the company. We've already got their feedback. We've already done focus groups with the manufacturers. We've done focus groups with dealers. We did surveys. We did market research. We did focus groups with the end user. We went out to our pro users. Our pro users are the people who obviously use their website the most. And then we went to our ones that are the early adopters and the late adopters. We went to people who used Androids, and we went and asked our whole user base what is the main problems they have when it comes to buying a new car, and what to say. And from all that 1.5 year research and work, we're now and the work, like over the last couple of months. So my role within Dundeel is basically a strategic account director, and my role is to make sure the relationship at the top level is in place, and that when we're going out and talking to each one of their brand networks, dealer networks, that they fully understand what Dundeel is doing. So the model that you explained there, or the way you would see a business rolling something out, that's the model of like, you know, suck it or see, either partner with us or feck off, like, you know what I mean? And that's not the approach we have. Where the approach we have is like, we're actually going to list every single new car that's available to buy in the market. We're going to list it in 2 weeks' time on Dundeal.ie. And we're going to advertise it all up. And the reason we're going to do that is because people are coming onto Dundeal now. The new trend is, and some people out there still think that Dundeal is for like the lower value cars. The most searched car on Dundeal at the moment is 2016, 2017 cars. So what we're doing is now we're going to basically put new cars on it, and we're going to put them in the stream. So as people are looking at cars and looking at used cars, and because dealers are advertising new cars on Dundeal as well, that in every other fifth place we're going to have a new car ad, and when you click into that, it'll give you the details on that car. Now, if the brand wants to partner with us, and if they decide to partner with us, and the majority of the top 10 brands in Ireland have already agreed at some level that they are going to partner with the new car showroom when it gets up and running, what they'll do is that the user will get an enriched experience. So they'll have more branding on it. The manufacturer will be able to put in the brochure into it. They'll be able to enrich it in. So there's like what we're calling the vanilla version, which is basically unenriched, and it'll just have the car's details. It'll have how many miles per gallon it'll do. It'll have the, like, you know, the speed. It'll have
nuts and bolts.
It'll have the nuts and bolts, and it'll be a really good user experience. And if the manufacturer want to come and work with us because they see the benefit and the solution that we're after providing, then we can give an enriched experience. So,
spoken like a true salesman.
Look, I'm just here to bring you on the journey, you know, Fran, and it's like this is the dream. This is where we're going, and it's really as beautiful as that.
You love it though, you do. You genuinely do. You're into it, like.
Yeah, I am.
It's palatable, like you're a genuine lad.
I genuinely, like, I'm very, very lucky that I am in a position in my career where, and I have been I'm with Dundeal Distilled, working with lads now 5 years in March, and I have to say, I'm sitting here, my runners and my jumper and my t-shirt, and it's easy going, and it's a great place to work. The atmosphere, and even after going through so many joint ventures and buyouts and all sorts of stuff, and they can be stressful times, that I passionately love what I do. I love working in the environment I do. And would I ever go and work for one of the big giants, American giants? No, I'd never, because I always want to be in this startup atmosphere, and that's the way it's still treating the business now. You can come in here, and some days you're pulling the hair out of your head, and next days you're not, but it all makes sense. We're all like pushing towards the same goal, and it's the same way I spoke about it there, is the way everyone speaks about it in the company. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Yeah. I've heard great things. Getting back to, or moving away from, let's say, Distill then, which has a very, I suppose, startup vibe to it, even though it might be around a long time. Getting onto the big players.
Yeah.
You mentioned before we started recording the big four, as you put. Who are the big four, say, for people who wouldn't know?
So the big four, when you're talking about in the digital landscape, is you're talking about Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google.
Okay.
Now, what's been happening for years is that and I was actually only starting to watch there was a lecture that was on, someone actually sent across me on this very topic, and I was just starting to watch it this evening. But it was a case of, it's looking at the big four and how they're positioned in the market. And each of them have basically been plodding along beside each other. Now, I suppose to Irish people, Amazon won't resonate with you as much as it would in America. And the reason being is that in Ireland, Amazon is here in the background. We're kind of buying a little bit off it. You get some people like, oh, I love Amazon, but it's not like everybody's jumping to say they're on Amazon.
Yeah, they don't ship here, and it can be a bit awkward at times.
But in America, Amazon is now $1 out of every $4 spent.
Did I hear, was it 3/4 of everything that was sold during Black Friday?
Was on Amazon.
Which makes Black Friday Amazon Friday practically.
Yeah, so and they're actually, so you know, way in China they have Singles Day, and Singles Day is basically like Black Friday, but the only difference is within 24 hours it does something like 18 billion or something crazy that. So it's unreal. But in America at the moment, when it comes to online spend, every €1 of online spend out of every 4 is through Amazon. And it's phenomenal, like, to spend. And the reason why Amazon is getting so big in the States and why it's going to start becoming more of a vocal point for us over here is because Amazon haven't recorded any profit over the last 4 or 5 years. And for the last 4 or 5 years, Amazon, for every cent they do, they pay off their wages, they pay their staff very well, they cover their costs, and every bit of profit they've made the last 5 years, they've pushed it back into research and development. And now, because of that business model that they started to do, I think it was maybe even back at 6 or 7 years they've started doing this. And because of that, that amount of growth, nobody does that. Nobody takes all their profits and puts it back in research. And now what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing more of a focus. So if you look at what's the actual focus point for us over here is Facebook. So you have Facebook. Facebook is very big now because within the big four, you have to look at what's connected to the big four. So everyone always thinks of Facebook. When you look at Facebook, you have to look at what includes Facebook and the size it is in the country. And we just talk about Ireland is also WhatsApp and Instagram. So that is Facebook now. When you talk about Google, you have to look at Google as being Gmail and YouTube. Yeah. You can't just look at it as a thing. And then when you look at basically, who's the other one now? Facebook, Amazon. Oh, Apple. So Apple is Apple. And Apple is a hardware company. They're making the devices. I think they have the most beautiful marketing strategy ever, and they have people sucked into it. So like every time they bring out a new device, people jump on it, and that's amazing. But what really bugs me about the top four, and I suppose instead of talking about, I suppose, where their business path is, I wouldn't be fully comfortable talking about it because I don't know the full ins and out. But when it comes to the likes of social media, there's one thing I have been learning about over the last year or so about social media is that I suppose it's how social media and especially Facebook is using their apps to basically suck us in and to train us to react to it. Because like Facebook, as we all know, is that they're pushing out more ads all the time. And because they're pushing out more ads and everything else, they need to think how are they going to get you back in? And what they've done over time now is they've basically trained it with that little sound and to basically pull you back in, that when you hear that little notification sound that your brain reacts to it. And something that I've heard so many times at different lectures and different talks about that is it's like, what's the first thing you now look at in the morning? Do you turn to your missus and look at her adoring, or the first thing you wake up is pick up your phone and see what's actually happening on your phone?
Yeah, no, of course, it's the phone straight away.
It's the phone straight away every time.
My missus doesn't tell the time though. But no, I get entirely where you're coming from. It's the first thing I suppose I would look at is the time. Second then is, if something's come in. More recently, it's the podcast and many fucking views or whatever downloads it's gotten. That's obviously I suppose an obsession of mine of the last month or two. But no, absolutely, it's literally the first thing. It starts off your day. So
see what you just said there about building up perception, and it's basically going on and seeing how many views and how many notifications your podcasts are after getting. So that's us evolving. That's us kind of going on now. And it's a case of when we do something and we put something on the internet, we want to see what reaction. We want to see what response did that get online. Now it's completely different when you're talking about podcasts and you're talking about putting a bit of literature up online or talking about something that has meaning to it, and that's brilliant. But the problem is what Facebook has tapped into that. Facebook has tapped into our minds, and it's actually our brains have now evolved. So if you take the big end of things, like doing something that's worthwhile, and then take it down to all the feckin' crap down the bottom, what they've done is they've trained their brains that so every time you wake up in the morning, and not so much us, but on the younger side of it, not that we're old, Fran, but
you maybe.
Just because it's a podcast, they can hear it in your voice, Fran. But on the lower end, it's a case of kids, teenagers going on and they're posting videos of themselves being drunk or doing stupid things, and they put up negative comments because it gets a reaction. And the reason that is because younger people now have actually involved that their brain is producing this new chemical that wasn't around 20 years ago. And what this chemical is, it solely comes from that's basically developed by notifications on phones and through social media. And it's simply what it is that when someone gets that notification, they've done a massive study now in cyber psychology on it, that basically when someone gets a notification ping or a sound, that basically this chemical is released in your brain, almost like serotonin, almost like this cocaine reacting to synapses in your brain. that now social media, and that's why social media over the last while, every app you have has now developed a new sound, and each one of the sounds that they've developed on their notifications is basically after being copyright and it's been patented, so they all have different sounds and they're all different disciplines, and what it is, it actually trains your brain, so when you get a notification on your favourite app, that boom, your brain reacts to it. And that's where it's after going to. And to bring it down to very, very simple terms, when you train a dog and you press a clicker, the dog does what you do and the dog reacts to it and it takes time to click it. That is what social media has done to humans over the last couple of years, and social media are fully aware of this, and this is how they get in. So it's a case of, people used to say when social media came out that it was just like a habit, it's really addictive. Well, that addiction has now turned into something, and it's a real thing now, and it won't go away, and that's why our kids are fucked. Do you know what I mean?
You paint such a pretty picture. I have to go back to this chemical thing now, because psychology and neuroscience and neurology is a hobby of mine, as such, say.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how it could possibly be a new chemical. I could see how it might be a new way of, activating serotonergic or dopaminergic functions, but a new chemical, or...
No, I wouldn't say... Well, maybe I have it wrong in saying it's a new chemical, but it's a new way, definitely, of reacting to it.
Yeah,
so it's a
of
case
activating.
of activating it and causing a reaction, and it's basically how social media... So the way to look at it is social media has tapped into your brain, and it's the same way with Google. Like, it's a case of you look at Google to answer any questions, but when it comes to social media... Yeah, all I know is that it's a case of, it was a paper I was reading about, so it was cyber psychology as a master's I want to start in the next year or two. So it'll be just to basically get the title of a cyber psychologist. But I was reading a couple of papers that are covered off, and I was reading a couple of the case studies that kind of see what kind of content they cover. And the one article that I kind of read through in particular, it focused on the reaction that social media is having on the brain and how people, and there's a massive study piece on it, and there's more and more scientists tapping into it. So maybe don't quote me on it being a new chemical.
Not at least
it's only words, Fran. It's only words.
Maybe when I'll quote you as having said that when you're what's the term?
Cyber psychologist.
A cyber psychologist.
We'll go back and do part 2.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's fuck me. It's fascinating the fact that the digital world, say, is producing new degrees, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Like that in itself is just fucking mind blowing. And we've mentioned it on the podcast before. It's come up a couple of times now. One with, I think, Paul Webster. What we discussed was he's our age. Well, he'd be my age. You wouldn't be quite as old as yourself. But what we mentioned was, or what came up in the podcast we did together was, people of our age, let's say early 30s, they remember a time pre-social media. So we're blessed to have had that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're like, I don't know, like, let's say if you're like, the internet proper is probably around.
If you're 20, you don't remember. If you're 20, you do not remember a life without social media.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're not going to remember, like, you might remember, like, I don't know how much, when people say, I remember being 5. Do you really? Well, come here. Like,
eating stone, picking your nose.
You know what I mean? Like, just fucking floating about. Like, you haven't switched on at that stage. But I think if you're 20, I don't know how much of life do you not know that didn't involve having a digital phone in your hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a big downside to that is, like, when we were small, say, and you got in trouble, you were either sent to your room, or maybe your mum and dad were on the phone or in the shower, or there was times when you had time to yourself to reflect on maybe what happened earlier on in the day, but these days you don't have a fucking split second, and it's not because other people have taken it away from you, but the hand goes into your pocket, you take out your phone, and you're looking at whatever it is you're looking at. But I mean, should there be almost like an age profile for social media? Where is this going, or where should it be going?
So I totally agree. I get where you're going with this, and to bring it into context, why I'd be so favourable in actually having age limitations when it comes to social media. But like, how would you ever police it? And I think I don't think this needs to be policed as in it needs to be governed. I think it's just something that parents should take on board. So my daughter Sophie, who's 14 now in January, she's very much like she's not on Facebook because I don't want her to be on Facebook. So this is me basically doing what I preach. So we're not letting Sophie go on Facebook. I don't want her to be on Facebook. And maybe when she's 16 or 17, if we get her to hold out to that stage. But I think she understands now that Facebook is just like, it's no point being on it. But she has got WhatsApp, she has got Instagram, she has got Snapchat. I think that's it.
And sorry, what's the difference between, say, Snapchat and Facebook?
So Snapchat is basically, she's communicating between her and her friends and even my own friends, and she's sending Snapchats around, and because her Snapchats are absolutely harmless and she's just having a crack on it, and even some of my mates have said that she's funnier on Snapchat than I am. I think they're just being nice. I look much better with puppy dog filters. You know, it's like, but she's sending those snaps around and she's having the crack and everything else. And then she might have Instagram, and she likes using Instagram and everything else. But the difference is, the only people that can contact her on Snapchat are the people that are basically, you know, that she's connected with or friends with, and that's it. And people on Instagram, the only people that connect with us. Now, I know what everyone's thinking out there is like, oh, you can put your Facebook on privacy. Yes, you can. But the news feeds, the advertising, all those additional things that come through on Facebook, they're not. That's Facebook pushing content out at you, and that's the content I don't want her to see.
Even if it is designed for a 14-year-old girl.
100%, because what Facebook do is Facebook have live auctions every night, and they resell their data, and they basically have information coming through. And without spooking a lot of your listeners out there, it's well like that. If you have a conversation on WhatsApp now, and if you don't have your chatting settings changed, you will start noticing, go in and start talking about events that are coming up this summer, then go to your Instagram page, and all of a sudden, like witchcraft, you're going to start being remarketed by keywords that are used in your WhatsApp conversations across Facebook and Instagram. It's already started happening. So in the way that Google, first of all, when people used to go onto Gmail and write in emails, you used to get the AdWords coming up the side, and that was completely acceptable. So this is no shock what Facebook is after doing, and that's why Facebook paid over the odds to buy WhatsApp the minute it came on the market.
It wasn't the company, it was the data and the
data,
potential of the data.
It was the potential, and they saw what Google did, and Google basically was able to drive up human behaviour and copy what people were doing because of Gmail, because they were watching what people were writing in emails. If you actually think that information is not going off, it's not going off and actually, like, you know, someone reading an email. It's like, it's not like that. But what it is they have algorithms that look at the patterns of what you're talking about, and they pick out key words, trigger words that are in your conversation, and from those algorithms, then it's like it spits back certain advertising to you. It's a science. It's a mind-blowing science how to do it, and nobody really knows the Google algorithm. I think only like 3 people know it, and even those 3 people don't know the other people's person. It's crazy, the algorithm behind Google. But Facebook has done their own now. So what they did was they bought up Instagram. Instagram, they're looking through the content, they're looking at what people are watching. It's another way of serving content and ads through, and they're doing extremely well off it. And then they bought WhatsApp. WhatsApp was saying, but now all those three social media, those platforms are all on one platform, and it's all just feeding data into Facebook.
I was chatting to a mate of mine, Gaz, and I think it was the podcast before last, and he mentioned that he was on Facebook doing whatever and ended up buying a pair of shoes. And I made the point that there's no fucking way that was accidental, that was basically, he had done something, whether it was his laptop was monitoring where his eyes were looking at the screen and he kept being drawn to fucking shoes or something of that nature. And I reckon that somehow the algorithm or that learned essentially that he needed a new pair of shoes, bumped up enough pictures of shoe ads, and he ended up buying it. Now, he wasn't particularly sold on that because he didn't remember seeing anything or clicking into anything or whatever else. But from what you're after saying to me there, he could have just maybe mentioned in a text message to his mum, you know, what are you up to today, son? Oh, ma'am, I'm just going into town to hopefully buy myself a pair of shoes. And with that information, Facebook can then plug a Clark's footwear ad at him.
Yeah. It's like the other day we were having a conversation with 2 of my friends, and we mentioned Body and Soul, the festival. And then Body and Soul are not advertising their festival for next year anywhere yet. But straight after that conversation, I went on Instagram, and the third picture down on Instagram is always an image. I think it's like every third, sixth. Not there's a certain pattern to way to come up. My first ad I came across was Body and Soul. And it was just like, now because I work in media, I can tell the difference of a sponsored ad and a remarketing ad. There's a little symbol that comes up on the ads, and if I want to say if you're in the business without sounding like a cock, but if you're in the business, you can see the difference. And because there's certain things that when you're on the internet, and if you're after clicking onto another website and a banner, an advertisement is being remarketed, you can actually tell if that ad is being remarketed to you. There's a little symbol on the ad.
And sorry to cut across you, but the difference between like a sponsored ad is just like a paid advertisement.
A sponsored ad is when someone goes on and basically puts it on and book it onto Instagram themselves. But a remarketing ad is when every digital platform in the world is connected to a network. So be it the Google network. So like 70%, nearly all websites are on the Google network. That's how they get all the advertisements coming through to it. So it's another form of revenue for a publisher. But then you have other networks there as well. And like obviously Facebook have their own network. So they're using their own data. They don't have to buy that. That's their network. And they're using it and they're serving out ads. And it could be a remarketing ad. But you can't tell. It's hard to explain without like having a visual, especially when you're on a podcast. You know, so I'm just pointing here to a big diagram of explaining it all. If you could see this diagram, you'd understand everything. But yeah, so it's a case of you can get reserved different ads, and they're doing it, be it they're doing it subtly or like I used to think I was just being paranoid, but now I'm not because I've read articles on it. And they're just clever using the data in the same way Google used the data through Gmail at the very start. But to kind of go back to what you're saying about like, you know, age profiling and social media, like I'm comfortable with Sophie being on Instagram. I'm comfortable with her being on Snapchat, and I don't mind her being on WhatsApp because it's an easy way to chat to her friend. But the difference is with her being 14 and fuck, like one thing I'm after learning is like girls have it hard. Girls have it really hard when they're growing up. Girls among other girls are like they're hard work on each other, especially little girls. And like I thought we had it as a breeze growing up as young lads. Like you're just out kicking the football around, or maybe this goes back to there was no social media and it was just out. You went out, you played curbs or you played football. You went to the green. You disappeared for hours on end. You came back because you knew what you could smell. Dinner was ready in the air, and you came back, like, you know, and that was it. But now all the kids are on social media, and like it is a case of when she's with me or she's with her mommy that you go in, and there was times when she was younger, you'd have to go in and check her phone and check her messages, and you'd see girls are being what one girl thought was okay to say, what one kid thinks is okay to say to another kid, is the other kid is really offended by.
Could be crushed.
Yeah, like you know it yourself when you're having a conversation as an adult, like and like someone might say something, and because like literally if someone doesn't put an emoji at the end of something now, it's like how the fuck you meant to know their emotions anymore? Yeah. And it's like you don't know if someone's being sarcastic, take it the wrong way. But kids don't get that.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with social media, and that's why I didn't want her on Facebook, because she'd read things and take them up the wrong way. But at the same time, when she's in these message groups, you still have to, as a parent, you still have to police it. Like what I was saying at the start, you have to go in and monitor. And I mean, like every other night, you have to go in and read their messages and make sure everything's okay. And I don't think that's a bad thing to have. Now, my daughter would know that I do that, and I look at her phone.
So she would or wouldn't know?
She would know.
Okay.
She's no problem with that. And so I was like I'd be like, but the difference is now I don't need to do that anymore. Because she comes to me and say, Dad, I'm not too sure about this, or Dad, will you have a look at this? Like, you know, is this okay? And so I've now built up a bond with her where she comes and like literally will talk to me about anything, and she's like that, and we're on Snapchat, we're having a laugh. But if something comes up on her phone, and I think you need to have, when your child goes on to start using social media, you have to have that keep it a very open conversation, and you can't be like, don't do that, don't go on that. Because the worst thing they can do is to go off into a bedroom on their own and be on, be on social media on their own.
Have their own private little unfettered Facebook account or whatever.
You can't do that. So I think when social media comes up in young children, and it's a case of they start asking the questions, I think you should go on. You should show them how to use it. Be like, give a little, you know, but don't maybe hold back on certain things because you don't agree with it. And you got to, as I said, it comes down to you got to police it at home. You got to keep an eye on it. But there's no point us all sitting here, or all of us. There's no point of us sitting here and saying like, let's police it, or let's up the ages, because that won't work. It needs to be done at home.
You said that you're okay with her being on, let's say, Snapchat and Instagram.
Yeah.
Is that because you're kind of, you're fluent in these things. I know what an Instagram is, but I actually couldn't tell you. I couldn't explain to someone what Snapchat is. It's not on my radar at all. And I think with every year that passes, there's fewer and fewer parents that don't know what social media is. But there's plenty of parents out there now that have kids coming up, because you're young, so you're in your early-ish 30s, and your daughter's what, 14?
14.
So most parents of 14-year-olds, I would imagine, will be that bit older than, say, you now. So if you're that bit older than you now, you don't fucking know what Snapchat or Facebook or any of these fucking things is.
Yeah.
So you say that you're okay with her being on Snapchat and Instagram, but is that because you've tweaked the settings? Is there something like that that a parent needs to do?
I do. I think you raise a valid point there, Fran. But I think it's a case of, because I'm a young parent, and because like I would be, and I think I won't say I say it myself, but some of my friends might refer to me as being a social media whore. But
you never.
So
next to becoming a hipster.
Don't let the beard fool you. So I would like to put the odd post up on the internet, and I put the odd, if I happen to be out something at the weekend, I like sharing that moment. Let's leave it at that. No, but I would put up, and I think it's because I'm like, let's face it, like I love what I do. I'm very passionate about when it comes to digital and digital marketing, technology, everything that's around the whole internet, and I suppose engaging with the internet and putting shite out there. I really, I don't know where it all came from, but I just enjoy it, and I really like Instagram, and I really like different things, and I like, maybe it's a case of I actually genuinely look at it as being like, a kind of somewhat of a diary or a blog, or in my own sense, and I enjoy it. So yeah, when it came to Sophie, then like looking at monkey see, monkey do, and she's like, "Oh, Dad, like I see her on your phone," and I definitely wouldn't be on it all the time now. But it's a case of, when I was younger, I used to be like, it was always in my hand, and be taken and be excessive. But I don't want Sophie to be like that. I don't want it ever to be excessive. But I definitely think, because I'm on it so much and she's onto it, I'm kind of like, I see it as neutral ground. I think it's okay for her to use it. But if I was like, Sophie was 14, and say I was like, I suppose a lot of people that have 14-year-olds might be in their 40s or 50s.
Yeah, of course.
And they haven't grown up being used to digital advertising, or digital
clue
about social media. They kind of do it a little bit, but they don't really understand it. I could totally see them as like, Snap what? Snapgram? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
because you see, you're doubly ahead of everyone else, because you're that bit younger, say.
Good bit younger there,
comparably to 50-year-olds. So you're that bit younger, and you've been fucking, eyeballs deep in digital media for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So even if somebody was your vintage, they still wouldn't be expected to know what you know, because they haven't been immersed in it professionally for over a decade, say.
Probably, yeah.
So, and you're probably the worst person to ask, because I was going to say, is there somewhere that people can go to kind of brush up on the do's and don'ts? You don't need to know what that website is, because you kind of...
There could be something in that.
You could write it. I mean, I'd love for someone like you, because you're in a fairly unique position to have, let's say, been immersed in the digital world from print, say. So you were working with print in CBG, that transformed into digital. You've remained in the digital sphere. You're big into your social media anyway, and you happen to have a 14-year-old daughter. So you're in a particularly good position to advise people your own age, younger and older, on the kind of do's and don'ts, and little things like saying that, Snapchat and Instagram, they're not perfect, but they're far better than, let's say, Facebook. A little bit of information like that is just complete gold dust to somebody who's not in the loop, say, as much as you are.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I don't know what to say to that, but I think you're dead right that it's a case of some people, and what it all comes down to is that if you're not educated on a certain topic, then you're not going to know, and you can't be expected to know. And I suppose the thing is that you've got parents out there now that are in their more mature stage, not as young as strapping as ourselves, is that their kids know more about the topic than they do.
Oh, vastly more.
Vast more. And it's a case of, we all joke about, like, do they get it? But then the thing about those same parents is the only thing they ever probably hear about social media is then about all the negative stuff that they hear online. I think still now when people hear about Snapchat and they hear that 10-second videos, I honestly say a lot of people in the older age will think like, Jesus, all they're going to be sending is dirty pictures on that, or sending like, what sort of a picture you're going to send that's 10 seconds long. I think Snapchat is one of the best things that's ever come along. It's pure funny. Now I would put up the odd Snapchat and everything else, but I think some of the Snapchats you get through, like one of my mates in particular, I won't say his name, like his thing is what he does is when he's driving to work in the morning, drive down the M50. Obviously, he does it when he pulls the car over, but he presses the Snapchat and he just videos himself singing in the morning or doing reactions, and it's funny. Obviously, don't Snapchat while you drive, but but then you've got like the likes of Instagram, and you've got people sending videos wrong, and it's all about short bursts of interview. But the one thing I would say is, and I used to be a bit of a bollocks for this myself, but people who go to events and they stand there, and this actually brings me on to something that I just saw last week. People who go to events and they stand there and they go to a concert gig and they've been waiting all year to see it, and they're after forking out like 60 or 70 euros to see this gig, and they stand there watching the gig through the lens of their camera, of their phone. Yeah. Like, now their phone is HD, it's probably better than their own eyesight, but it's the point of they're watching through that, and it's like, put the phone away. And we all now, in fairness, we all made that mistake when a case of we all started getting 50 billion megapixels phones and fucking shite on our phones, and we all lost run of ourselves there for a little while. And personally, for me and my group of friends, is that what we've come to realize is that there's always going to be some wanker in the background somewhere with a GoPro camera, HD, recording it better than you're going to record it. So you may as well just let those lads record in the background, and you just enjoy the gig, and then you'll be able to go and watch that on YouTube and trying to make your own. But everyone's so tied up about sharing that content. And I don't really like that about social media, but that is what social media is. It's about like constantly doing that, and it's capturing those moments. And on that very point, it's a case of, you saw last week, Dublin were putting on their Christmas lights. Yeah. And everybody was on Grafton Street, everybody was out. And there's actually this really, really funny picture that came from it. And outside Brown Thomas's, you had two people on the stage, and I put up a post on it basically saying, I can only hope it was someone as famous as Ronan Keating was on the stage, or someone like someone iconic in that level. But he was standing there. There was a gentleman and a woman standing on stage. Couldn't see who it was, and it was this crowd of people outside them on Grafton Street, and they were all there, and we're talking like 20-30 people deep, the whole width of Grafton Street, facing Brown Thomas, and they're facing at this stage at the front door. But a photographer from the top of the building adjacent to Brown Thomas took a photograph of the crowd, and every single person at the single time was taking a photograph.
Of the lights about to be turned on?
No, not even of the lights about to turn on. Of whatever gobshite was standing on that stage.
Jesus.
I don't even know who that gobshite was, because this fella was so far back. But the point is, and I think what he was even focusing on things, he wasn't focusing on the person on the stage either. The person who was taking the photograph was focusing on around 400 people standing squashed together, taking a photograph at the same time through their phones. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, this image. And it's like, it just summed it all up. And like, I was thinking to myself, I was like, did people used to go and watch the Christmas lights being turned on before social media? Did they go and watch these events happen before they could take a photograph of it?
Or was it only people with 50 meg digital cameras that went?
Or is it a case of people just went along and just enjoyed it?
Yeah.
And I think it's the latter. And
of course.
People went along, they just enjoyed the event, what was going around, and they didn't care about the after. Everyone's more worried about what happens after. How many can I need to share this experience? I need to let everybody know what I was doing when I was doing it. Yeah. Now, a lot of people, if they hear this, will say, like, bullshit, Simon, because you're exactly the same. And I am. But, like, the difference, I'm not saying it's different for me, is that if what I do is, and what I capture across my Instagram is, I capture things I'm passionate about. So I'm passionate about, like, obviously moments that I have with my daughter and things I do with her, and moments I do on my mountain bike when I'm out mountain biking and I'm at the top of the, like, I could be on somewhere on the top of the Alps, I could be somewhere in Wicklow, I could be taking a day off work and I'm going mountain biking somewhere. I'm capturing the sunset and things, and that's what matters to me, and that's the trend that's on my Instagram page. Do I feel the need to put up a photograph of every fucking thing I see? No, I don't. Do I feel the need to put up photographs of things that are events that are happening because I know they're going to get likes? No, I do not. I only put up things that I feel that I know are stuff that's like things that I genuinely like. If no one else likes it, I honestly couldn't give a feck, like. But they're the things I like, and that's the difference with the content I have. The problem I have is that so many people are out there, they're actually just trying to capture the content, not what they like, what the other 100 people will like.
It's not even what the other 100 people would like, it's what you think
The other 100 people are going to like.
Yeah.
And I can't, I'm just like, that's the weird bit when it comes to social media. And it's like everyone's just worrying about what everyone else is going to be thinking, and what they're going to like and what engagement it's going to get. And it's a fucking minefield.
No, it is, and there's even a downside, I think, in relation to what you're doing, which might seem kind of seemingly harmless, but you don't typically take a picture of, you know, the day, like let's say if you're up a mountain and for whatever reason it's overcast, maybe it's raining, you never put up a shit photo.
Well, that's actually, no, I'd have you wrong there now.
Do you?
I would put up a shit photograph and I'd say it's a shit day.
But you see the point I'm getting at. You mightn't say it, but I saw a great...
I get what you mean, yeah.
I saw a great example of a lad I used to know. He put up a picture of his two twins on Facebook. I saw it on, I think. And it was on the front doorstep of his house. I don't know if he was leaving or coming back to the house, but he had twins. They were newborns. And they were all cuddled up in their little... car seat things, but they were sitting on the ground facing the camera, and the two of them were bright purple in the face because they were fucking screaming crying, and it was such a beautiful picture. Like, it was just a little drop of reality in a world of complete nonsense. Like, you know, and now we don't just take one photo of our kid looking great, we take 40 photos and pick of our kid looking great and pick the fucking best one, and it gives such a skewed sense of reality. And you couple that with growing up with this, you know, if you're online, say, or you're on social media from a very early age, you grow up with such a skewed sense of reality, and you can see why people would wonder, kids, let's say, would wonder, why is my life so shit when everybody else is you know, so amazing? Like, but they don't realise that they're only getting a snapshot of that person's life, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing that we've had to talk to Sophie about, my daughter, that it's not real. And it's like, for instance, she's at the age now where she has friends coming in at the week after the weekend, and they're saying they're doing this and they're doing that at the weekends, and I won't say what, but it's a case of they're coming in. And what I've had to explain to Sophie is that there's always one kid. We all had that one person that came into school and said, oh yeah, you know, I was doing such and such at the weekend, and they always like, and it turns out they're just complete liars.
Yeah.
And what I've done now, what she's learned now, is that that's what the internet is. The internet is sometimes just the biggest liar in the whole world, or betrayer of liar, or putting the wrong perception out. And I think that's where it's going to hit kids the hardest, or people who are, as you said, Fran, is like people who are growing up in that world, because they look at it and they think like it's like, look at girls now, they have to pout in every photograph, and they have to do this, or they have to look certain ways, and they have to have a certain image, and it's like almost like they feel like they have to be a certain way. Sure, if they knew that every time like Beyonce put a picture up that it has to be photoshopped, and it's like there's not one natural photograph of that woman on the internet, that every photograph has to go through a screening process, or if, like, you know, the Kardashian queens or whatever the fuck they're called, every time one of their images go up, it's all vented and it has to go through certain guidelines and brand guidelines, almost because of how it looks. It's like, it's so surreal of what kids actually see. And to be honest with you, we're very lucky that Sophie totally gets that, but I feel so bad for so many other girls out there that they feel like they're growing up to expectations that they might never live up to, and the only thing that can feed into is depression and into a wealth of other psychological problems that they're going to have, and not being basically confident with themselves. And that, it all comes back to, again, what I said at the start. It's a case of, that's when you need to police social media. Us as adults, we know what's crap and we know what's good, but even at sometimes, I say, we even struggle to see, to detach ourselves from like the reality and what's not real. And I think we need to, but can you imagine what it's like for a kid seeing that and to be hit? And the problem about the internet is they're being hit with so much information all the time, and I think that's the one thing we need to watch out. And it's tough growing up in that if that's the way you just see the world, if this is the only way you've ever seen it.
Yeah, like you said that, you know, kids are growing up and they're seeing these images and they might not be able to kind of live up to the expectations. But it's not even that they might not be able to live up to it. They physically can't live up to it. They literally can't look that well. No. Because, you know, unless they've got, you know, a team of fucking digital media experts, you know, tweaking every fucking pixel on the page. And, you know, taking 40 photos, taking 100,000 photos from 50 different locations by professional photographers using professional lighting and Photoshop and all the rest of it. And personally, I'm for less government generally, but the government, I suppose, has a place to put warnings on cigarettes and on fatty foods and whatever else, and they have a role to play in society in helping to educate people. Should there be, I don't know what you'd even call it, just thinking out loud, should there be a mental health warning on social media?
Yeah, just you're touching on something there really strong, and I think it's I think we know now from more and more studies as we've got older, and it's like we're more aware, very much openly, and trying to bring mental health out into the open. And it's great to see so many Irish people come forward now that, you know, that have come across and talked about their problems. And I think it's we need to keep that momentum going. And I think you could be right that it's a case of where, if we can understand where the core problems might generate from, and we can identify that. And I think for kids growing up, that social media is going to be a point where it's being generated. And can you put like a warning around it? Yeah, you can. It could be just a case of just putting down simple thing, that coming out with a simple message from studies: you should not let your kids be on social media for so long. We don't let Sophie be on social media or a tablet after 8 o'clock. That's something we stick to. I'm a big believer of that, because not even about social media, but just even like looking at a tablet, it's not good for our eyes, it's not good for our brain. The brain should be starting to wind down from 8 o'clock, getting ready to go to bed. If she's on that thing up to 9 o'clock, your brain's going to be wired. I know I wouldn't. I know any time that I have to work late and I bring the laptop home and I try to do it, you never get a good night's sleep. You know those nights where you're pushing late and you're looking at the laptop screen, you're working away. So I think it's just a case of even just a national message going out there basically saying more than 2 hours a day. 2 hours, that even sounds excessive. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, what's an okay to time to spend on social media? We've got so used to now that saying
it's ubiquitous,
saying 2 hours a day. But when you think about it, I don't know anything else besides work that I don't do consistently for 2 hours, like 2 hours a day. And like when you talk about social media, people are on and off it all day long.
Yeah, no, they really are. Like you touched on it earlier, it's literally the very first thing that they kind of gravitate to. Your eyes open, and before you've cleared the fucking sleep from your eyes, you're on your phone to maybe just fairly innocuously check to see what time it is.
Yeah.
But right there beside the time is your fucking Facebook and your Instagram and everything else.
But it's the simple thing what everyone does now, and it's the way the phone is designed. Like I've got a Samsung, and the way I go on, I wake up in the morning and I get my thumb and I just scroll down the bar at the top, and the bar at the top then it pulls in all my notifications, and I know at a glance then if I have notifications on whatever platform it is. I know my Gmail is what emails have come in, if some work has come in during the night, and it's all at a flick of the thumb. And from that then I can literally just swipe left to get it off the list or click into it, and I have everything there. And everything that's after happening on my phone the last 12 hours is in that spot. And Samsung have not, it's no coincidence that the phones are built like that. It brings all your notifications together, and that's what you do now. You just turn to your phone to see what's happened. Like, what could have honestly happened in the space of going to sleep and the time you wake up that's like that urgent that you need to check it straight away?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Weird.
We all kind of live as though, you know, we're the president of the world.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? Like,
well, I'm awake now. I'm awake.
But it's mad though, isn't it? Like, how fucking important do we think we are?
Wow.
That we have to, you know, make sure that we're on top of fucking everything all the fucking time.
Yeah, we've got serious fucking notions going on. And I think it's a case of, on that very point, it's a case like waking up, and I know I do it, and I'm not saying I 100% do this. And it's a case of I wake up and I look at my phone, and before I put my foot down on the floor, I look at my phone, see notifications, and then I'm like, right, now it's time to get up and get going.
Yeah.
And it's like my first step in the day.
Yeah, it's mad.
God, that's fucking sad.
Isn't it though?
Yeah,
it is.
It
is. Yeah. And like, you might piss and moan about how, you know, you have to work, 5 or 6 days a week, and most people would, like, fuck's sake, have to go to work, even if you love your job. There's always an element of,
there's like, you still want to go out and live your life.
Yeah, of course.
I just think it's a nice thing that I enjoy my job, where it's a case of it's not so much a chore, like, that's all.
But it's mad though, because you're in a tiny minority of people, I would imagine, that kind of love your job as much as you do. But the amount of people out there, myself included, not for the last couple of years since I've started working for myself, but previous to that, I would have hated my job and jobs for fucking years, despised them. But I'm still checking my work email before I get out of bed, as though, like, it's a weird kind of conflict of interest. I hate it, but yet I'm checking my work emails before I get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, but you might, if you ever have a job and you like hate it, but I think it's like, you still want to know what you're doing is that you're doing it right and you're doing it good. So whatever you might be doing, that you will always check your emails just to see what messages came in. But I think it's more of a case of checking the tasks to see what tasks are ahead of you. I think no matter if be it you love your job or hate your job, it's still just drawn to, like, you check your phone in the morning and you have something to check. It might always be a work email, but it'll be something on social media, or it could be anything, but you're just drawn to check to see what's going on, what conversations are after happening. Is someone, and especially on a Sunday morning, if you're not on Snapchat, going onto Snapchat on a Sunday morning and going in and seeing what messages and pictures your friends have put up, because they put up photographs, and you can either send something directly to a friend, or you can send it, if you send directly to a friend, then it's gone, but they can only see it for 10 seconds and it's gone and the video's gone, they can't replay it. But if they send it to the story, then it's on the storyline for 24 hours. And the amount of content that goes up on a Sunday morning, and by the time it comes
so
around,
this is from the night
that
was uploaded at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. Mental. People like bloopers all over the country, and they're putting stuff up, and it's going up, and it could be anything from the pub, and next you know it's a Snapshot of like curry chips, and then it's like a Snapchat of like fucking getting sick out of a taxi, and you wake up on a Sunday morning and it's gold and you're watching all this. But then as people start to wake up, you go on, they check their stories, and you can clearly see that they're like, delete, yeah. And all this content that's meant to be on your story, it's gone after 24. It's gone by lunchtime. The fear has kicked in, and they're like taking it down. And it's funny, like, you know what I mean? And getting up on a Sunday morning and watching that, it's like, it's not what I do every Sunday, but getting up and watching that sometimes is funny. But and I think that's okay, like, and you're kind of doing the fun aspect. But when it's just like a go-to, like, this is what I need to do, I'm checking my phone, it's dreary. And I think to bring it into a couple of TV shows, or one particular TV show that sums it up so well, is I can't think of the man that wrote it, but it's Black Mirror. Black Mirror did an episode. Did you ever watch Black Mirror season?
I've seen the for want of a better term, the pig fucking one.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't really seen much else, being honest.
You should really watch, and I can't recommend more, going onto Netflix and watching Black Mirror. There's one in particular in season 2 where it's about a girl, and the world is, everyone has this app and everybody's on it. And what it does is that when people get, and that's something we should have said about this whole conversation about with social media, it's basically, we have a generation that thrives on instant gratification. That's what all the social media comes down to. They want reaction straight away,
an emotional
response straight away, and that's what social media comes down to. And that's what this show actually taps into. And it bases, like, you know, the world and in the future age, not too far future, not like the Jetsons with flying cars, like not that far forward, but like just with the case of everyone's on this app. And the key thing about it is that when you do something good or you're polite to someone, as they go by you, they see you pop up on their phone and they rate you out of 1 to 5. And as you get more rates of 1 to 5, your social class goes up, and as your social class goes up, you're allowed access to more goods, and you're invited to more events, and you're invited to the important parties, you're invited to all the different things. And if you do something, like, it could be a case of like you do something slow, or you're having a bad day and you're kind of like, oh, you know, get the fuck out of the way, that would be like 1 star, and it's like and then like you're not going to talk to someone that's a 1-star person. And it basically sums up the whole world as people are going around and grading themselves through social media.
Yeah, how many likes the post
how many likes, and at what, like, who is this person, what quality of a personality they have, and they literally are doing it. And the whole hour show is just solely around that, about it. And when you watch it, it's like, fuck me, this is what it comes down to. They also did a show where basically showed about this fucking lunatic of an American celebrity became an American president, and he like took over the world and caused World War III. But that one was a bit far-fetched as well, like, you know, so...
Starring fucking Donald Trump,
no
doubt.
Trump. The day Donald Trump got elected, Black Mirror actually put up and I thought it was the best tweet I saw the whole day. Black Mirror put up, and it was only a couple of weeks after that episode was aired. It was a while before. Sorry, it was a while after. Sorry, that was the episode. But Black Mirror, on the day that Trump got elected, they put up a tweet, and it goes, "This is not a PR stunt."
Yeah, brilliant.
Because if you watch their shows are like, if the world as we know it was to kind of go slightly a bit more left or a bit more to this direction, this is how it could be, or are we not like this already? So, but that one about the phones on the topic that we're talking about today, it's definitely worth a watch.
You just put an idea into my head. I'd love to put you in touch with, say, even Paul Webster. He's a mate of mine that I think he's episode 2 on the podcast. He's a director, and I'd love for
nice linkage there.
Sorry?
Nice linkage there.
To the Off the Lead podcast. Available across all platforms and on YouTube. Listened to over 1,200 times in 18 countries and counting. Nice. Get a plug of my own show on my own show. But yeah, I'd love to put you together with him, and maybe I don't know who else, but put a couple of you together and make that Black Mirror episode that you were talking about that kind of depicts social media. Maybe a third person would be like a children's writer.
Yeah.
So between the three is you could actually make maybe a short story or a little maybe a cartoonist would be the way to go. Or even just to discuss how is the best way to kind of translate this to kids, because presumably that episode of Black Mirror isn't suitable for like an 8-year-old. Do you know what I mean?
No, I think your policing of parenting has gone wrong if you're showing your kids Black Mirror. They're the kids that are on social media pimping themselves out. But come here, wasn't I say no? I think 100%. Like it's how do we take those episodes of Black Mirror or things that have come out like Black Mirror that kind of show how fucking crazy it's all gone, and they try to hype it up obviously to make us watch it. But maybe it's a case of they need to start bringing that down a gauge and kind of saying, well, how can we translate this across kids? I know personally that the whole thing about one of the areas that about why I'm interested in getting into cyber psychology is that one of the biggest things is cyberbullying. And I think there's a massive opportunity there. I don't mean business opportunity, but I think there's a massive opportunity that someone could do something to help educate schools on how to speak to their pupils on cyber psychology and about cyberbullying and kind of going away. Because even my daughter has told me like that people, and she's quite savvy when it comes to the internet and digital, like, you know what, she has me as her father, so but she,
God help her.
Yeah, cheers, Fran. So but I mean, like, she was saying that people come in and she goes, Dad, the way they talk to you about the internet, you swear that we were babies, like. So obviously that person is not connecting with whoever's going around. And there's probably some gobshite making money off the back of this, but I think there's definitely a thing there where someone could step in and actually, the future minds, kind of educate them to the powers of why everything we've spoke about, how damaging it is on their side and why they shouldn't be doing certain things. And just saying to them that, oh, you shouldn't put that on the internet because you never know when it might pop up in a job interview. It's more damaging than that.
Yeah, it's far more damaging. That's a really archaic way of viewing it, isn't it?
And it's like, a bit of fear. It's more damaging than that. It's a case of it opens it up. One slip you could make could basically be shared around everywhere and putting something in a video. And I feel really sorry for girls that are like young girls, and they feel like they have to send, like, pictures around, or lads even sending pictures around to each other. God knows what they're sending to each other, and then they're not realizing like they're sending a picture of themselves around, and they're putting trust in that person. And fuck me, like, we all know how fickle when you're 18, 19, maybe some are more fickle than others, but how fickle you can be, where it's case you break up with someone and you're with someone 3 months, and oh my God, I'm going to be with this person for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? You've seen like 17 or 18 year olds say those things, and
yeah,
they
mean them.
And they should say those things. They should fall in love, and they should, like, break up at the drop of a hat and go through all those experiences. But at the background of it all now, we have fucking social media and phones, and the problem is they're sharing pictures of each other's, and it's damaging to their lives and degrading to each other. But they're just a thing, and they feel, because of the internet and because of social pressure and because they feel like it's the done thing, it's okay to do it. And that really fucking pisses me off. And I feel sorry for kids in that era where it's a case of they feel like, or anyone in any stage of their lives that feels like they have to do it, and more social pressure doesn't just come from your peers that you grow up with. It comes from people that you don't even know.
And a lot of the time these days, not even real people. So like, you know, fake accounts and whatever else.
I don't even think we're living in an era anymore of fake accounts. I don't think, like, I think when the internet first kind of kicked off, and it was like when it was all Facebook and social media and everything else, I think people are crazy enough as being themselves now.
Well, that's very true, yeah.
Yeah.
I
think that, like, people are fucking believers, like, you know.
There's an analogy there between something I heard recently about AI. Someone was saying that how scary artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence is and is becoming. But I heard someone make a very valid point. They said that they're not as afraid of that as they are of actual stupidity. Do you know, like, you know, human level stupidity is far scarier than you know, artificial intelligence.
Some of the shite that people are talking about these days and putting up on the internet, and you know, how they're talking about their physique, or how they want to look after themselves, and how they're, like, you know, about their diets and the way they treat themselves, or the way they, you know, pushing it to the limits, how, like, they live every day by eating, like, the skin of a banana. And it's mental. And again, it all comes down to, because everyone's trying to be unique, and everyone's trying to be unique because they feel like being just unique is, you know, this is what people are going to like on the internet. And it comes down to just be yourself. I'm not going to say something like one of those and I also fucking hate all those motivational, like, messages that you see going up, where it's a case of, like, you know, be yourself, nobody else can be you, and all this. Like, fuck off. Just be yourself. Have the crack, have a laugh and all that, and don't take yourself too seriously. Because unfortunately, it's like all these dickheads that you see out there, and you think that they're getting the biggest response and everything else. They're the ones that are sitting at home rocking themselves to sleep at night, you know, crying, or, like, you know, or they're I really genuinely think they're all fucking miserable. Do you know what I mean?
No, I think, like,
and it's a case of they're doing it, and I think more and more cases now, and I actually just, as I say this, I'm just thinking, maybe more and more of those cases that you do see, they are fake accounts, and they're probably just models, and their company's saying, here, go on and say this, build up a thing, be a face of something and build it up. But at the same time, you have all those lunatics out there that are basically doing it, and they have their 100,000, 200,000 followers, and it just snowballs. They have people following them, and then people giving them products to talk about, and it's the new thing. Like, this is how they sell to kids now. My daughter watches a video blog every other day, and it's called JoJo's Juice. Have you ever heard of JoJo's Juice, Fran?
Can't say I have, no.
JoJo's Juice is a girl, from what I can understand, is an American girl. Her mom was American or something, but she lives in England. And she puts up a video, and it started like a year ago, and she basically used to get into the shower or the bathroom. Now, obviously, had all her clothes on and everything else, and she used to get 4 litres of juice, and she used to pour it over her head, and she'd do a short little, like, 30 or 25 minute, 30 minute video blog, or as they call vlogs these days. All right, okay. It's called vlogs, isn't it? I don't know.
You tell me.
Video vlogs, yeah, video vlogs. Fuck off. So there is still a detached there from being like 34 and not fully understanding what's going on there. But anyway, so they have these video blogs going up and do that. But now this thing is after growing. This girl puts up a new video every day that ranges between 30 minutes to 45. After that video goes live every day, by the end of the day, it has double digits in the millions.
Sorry, she pours...
Not anymore. She doesn't do that anymore. So it's developed on now, and she basically just does a video, and she just talks about her life. She talks about either what she's going off to do that day. Sometimes she might do in the morning before she goes to school. Sometimes
just complete mundane.
Yeah, she's kind of gone.
Stuff.
And in fairness to her, she usually has a bit of content, or she's just rambling on. But Sophie comes home from school, and she goes upstairs, and she watches her 30-minute video, and she watches it. And this girl, JoJo Juice, JoJo, she gets up and she has the chats, and sometimes her ma's in it. But I mean, like, every day those videos go into like 8 or 10 million views from people all over the world, or from kids all over the world. And now when Sophie's watching them, what happens is JoJo Juice will basically put out, and she's like, and this is the eyeliner I'm using today.
Of course she does.
And there's, it's looking a little weapon like. And then there's Grace Jones, there's another one. She came out and she made a song. And literally it's just like the brands are now going to the kids, or going to people that do these videos on social media, or they have the big accounts, and they're getting them to do the product placement, and that's how the kids are buying into it. Jesus, like my daughter, like in fairness now, Sophie has watched these and she watches the makeup tutorials and everything else, and I think watching stuff like that on YouTube is great, and she's a pro. She's better than her mum at doing her own makeup now, and when Sophie used to come out and the makeup would be plastered on her, but now she comes out and it's like it's all less is more, and you know, everything else, and she's picked that up. But at the same time, she's asked me for a fucking Mac. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's like she's asking me for the top quality stuff. So she's watching these videos, but she's also being hit with the product placement. And it's like, and she doesn't see any difference to that. She's not asking for the achievement. And it's funny how they're engaging now. So brands and everything else are looking at that, and they're looking how kids are engaging with the internet. And more brands are going to focus on that. So it won't be direct advertising. It'll be tapping into all those personalities that are on the internet. And it's happening more and more. This is nothing new. I'm not talking about anything that is like life-changing here, but this is already happening. And it's a case of on social media, and the case of social, like the way we all look at these idiots that run around on social media, or we watch them for advice or whatever it might be. And I think this is very much something that we wouldn't have bought into now at our age, but definitely the millenniums, and even like whatever is before after millenniums, the younger ones again, they are definitely being sold to and being branded to and being targeted in a completely different way. And they're being targeted by people that they trust in, the personalities that they follow on the internet, and that's how they're coming across different products, and that's why they feel like they need to have it to be socially accepted.
Oh, absolutely. And like it's mad. Subliminal advertising was banned whenever it came about. Like, you know, this idea of flashing a can of Coke in the middle of a film when you wouldn't have noticed you've seen it, but your brain notices you've seen it. Like, that was banned because it was deemed as too kind of, I don't know, creepy or insidious or something. And I think it's hilarious because in Ireland, I think there's a law that states if you are a social media person, say, and you're dropping in ads, you actually have to say that it's an ad. Now that's an effort in the right direction to tell people, listen, I'm promoting Mac or whatever it is, and this is an ad, but you know, it's brilliant and I use it every day and whatever else. But there's an analogy there between that and the placebo effect of a drug or a sugar pill, say. You give someone a sugar pill and tell them it's a placebo, it'll still work. You advertise something to someone and tell them it's an ad, it still works. Telling people it's an ad, it almost gets them to listen more closely. Do you know, kind of way it nearly has the opposite effect. Like, and there's an element of subliminal advertising when you're essentially prostituting children to sell to children. Do you know that kind of way? Like, it's so fucking creepy.
So I would disagree slightly with what you say about, like, if you say it's an ad, people engage more. I actually think it's the complete opposite. And the best form of advertising now is native advertising. So it's basically hitting people in whatever they're doing. And that's my point about watching, as people watch videos and watch blogs and look at personalities, they don't realise they're being sold to, but they are being sold to. And that's the key thing. So it could be a case of, hi, I'm drinking a Starbucks here and you should drink Starbucks. It's not as like that. It's just he's sitting there and he's talking and he has the Starbucks on. Or for the girl that's 14, 15 and she's looking at Jojo Juice, she just like, oh, I'm using this makeup, by the way, because I think it's how I get my... I know it's how I get my eyelashes looking great every day. And it's as subtle as that.
Yeah, of course.
And I think now with digital media, and it's bringing right back to what we were talking about earlier on about Dundee and everything else, what we've done is we've actually stripped a lot of our display ads off the website because we don't need to focus so much on the obvious money that you can bring in from a company. We're building up our solution, and if you build up your solution and your service, then everything else will come behind it. But in the same way with digital advertising is that it's like there's a term now that's used, knocked around, it's called banner blindness. If you have a website or if you have a page on the internet that you're looking at and there's like you're getting hit with multiple marketing messages, you actually don't see any of those marketing messages, no matter how, because they might all be targeted, but because there's so fucking many of them, you don't take any of them in. Yeah,
it's like the first 3 results there on a Google page, I wouldn't look at them. You just you skip to like 3 or 4 down because you know the first 3 are ads.
Yeah,
basically.
you know the first 3 are ads, or if you really understand it, you will click on it because that sucker's after paying €1 to get that click that he would have got anyway. So there's a bit of that going on. But I think it's a case of the less it looks like advertising now, and the more it's actually feeding into what the person wants, the more engagement and the more response they'll actually get. And that's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to solely get people on and looking at it. And that's the key of our business. And I definitely won't give the secrets away, but it's understanding what the consumer wants and putting it in front of them. And that's what brands are doing. Brands and consumers are going to personalities, and that's like in Ireland the big trend at the moment is basically, and I think this is really good. A lot of the local dealerships are basically now supporting their local GAA teams, their local school football teams, the ladies rugby, the women's rugby, be it at club or national level, whatever it might be. You've like look at Little Aldi, I always get two mixed up. Are supporting women's Irish rugby. And I think it's a case of the reason why they're doing that is that's they're tapping into passion. And
it's the emotional response.
It's emotional response again. So it all comes back to the same thing again. And they're just tapping into it because they're supporting the local GAA star. They're getting behind them. And they're like, you know what, they're good. You know, they're getting behind that. They're supporting them every week. They're seeing them at the matches. They're seeing it on the jerseys. And then they buy into that. It's the exact same thing with the internet. Yeah. So it's a case of you don't want to be basically like shouting about your brand. You don't want to be like pushing your brand onto someone. But if you can find a way where someone's going on and they're going onto the internet because they're going to sit there and watch something and engage with something, and you can get your brand in front of them at the right time, that's the key to marketing. That's the key to digital marketing.
No, absolutely. And I see it. I don't watch a whole pile of telly if I can avoid it.
So telly actually just I actually read something really interesting. So there's new laws coming in that you can't advertise to children on telly anymore. So the way television ads. This was banned. I believe it was banned in America first, and I think they're going to be banning it in Europe soon. There's new regulations coming in, but it hasn't been banned yet. So like look at the likes of IKEA. IKEA advertise to children every day of the week. And they basically go in and they have all the characters come alive, and they're like, the monsters or the robots, that one where they're all sitting around, and then it comes down to normal people. And the reason they do that is because the kid will turn around. The kid in a family is a high influencer when it comes to the purchasing decision. And what they do is that from research, it's like if you get the kid reacting, they're like, oh, go to that, because then what the family is like, oh, well, we go to IKEA, yay, we have to go to it, and the kid wants to go, and it's an enjoyable, easy. And as you know, as being a parent yourself, it's a case of sometimes you just want to have that break where you can go something. It's not going to be any hassle. It's not a chore, and that's what advertising to kids do. It's like even any of the car ads. It's like there's so many different ads. Like obviously the obvious ones is toys. But even if you look at it like a children's TV channel like Nickelodeon or whatever, the amount of advertising that is on that channel is like second to no other channel in the world.
Relentless.
It's relentless, non-stop.
My young lad is 3.5, and he watches a bit of telly and that. And I've started this new thing. I don't know if it's fucking advisable, to be honest. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's what I've been doing. He'll say, an ad will come on the TV, and he'll say, Daddy, I want that. And I'd say, yeah, no worries, I'll buy you 40 of them. He'll go, okay. And that's my response to any time he asks for something to tell. Yeah, no worries. How many do you want? Do you want 30 of them, 40 of them, 50 of them? Yeah, I'll get you 50 of them, no worries. And he kind of forgets about it. And the idea being that it kind of puts it out of his head, and that he never really knows that or never really thinks that it's real, because I'm not really going to buy 40 or 50 of them. And if it comes back to bite me in future, I can say to him, well, listen, I was never going to buy you 40 of them. I don't know. I genuinely don't know if I'm doing the right thing by doing that, but it's what I'm doing. But I know what you mean about selling to... And it's not even selling to people. It's selling what people want themselves to be. So there's an ad at the minute, I think it's for a Kuga, the brand of car Kuga. Yeah. Is it a Ford Kuga? You obviously know.
Ford Kuga, yep.
And it starts off, a woman opens her eyes in bed and she sees the alarm, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning or something, and she looks out the window, I think, and she sees her Kuga, and she kind of gets that bit of inspiration, and she gets up and she goes and does her box fit class or something, and she's in her tight fucking outfit or whatever it is, and she's all sexy and independent and all that bollocks, and then she gets back in before the kids are up, and the ad isn't selling the car. The ad is selling the lifestyle of, if I had a Kuga, maybe I'd be really toned and up at 4 o'clock in the morning doing my box fit or Pilates or whatever the fuck it is. Like, so they're not even selling to you. They're selling to your ideal you.
Yeah, and that's 100% it. And even when you look at it basically, so obviously across channel marketing now, it's when you have every good strong campaign will start off with a digital plan, then it'll go above the line with TV and outdoor advertising, and then it'll bring it back down to digital. And each one of those assets that are used across the marketing journey will all be based on lifestyle images now. And lifestyle images are so important. And this is why Instagram has become so big in its own rights, because people enjoy experiences now. And this is something where it's a case of we all work hard, we all pay our taxes, we all get up, and be it that we're like, stay-at-home parents, or we get up and do a job, or we work night shifts or day shifts, we all want to think that there's more to it. We all want to think that there's something out there, that there's experiences to have, and there's more to life. And there is, please God, and I don't mean to say that in a dreary kind of way, but there is. But what the brands are doing is, and especially the car brands is like, you can have this car, you can afford to have this car, and you will have this lifestyle. And what I can tell you is that it coming down to working in the trade and working with the motor brands for years and years on end now, like 5 years and back in things, I've come to learn that there's two things that sell a car. Just two simple words: desirability and affordability. That's it. If you understand how to market desirability and affordability of anything, especially with a car brand, you can sell it.
And what does that translate to? So what you want and how much you're able to spend?
Desirability comes down to a number of things. It comes down to lifestyle. It comes down to like for a woman, it comes down to like, exactly what you said, how it fits into the life. They want to look stylish, and that's all perfectly fine. When it comes down to a lad, it's like, I'm thinking about this car. They're down the pub at the weekend and they show 5 of their mates. What do you think of that? Look at the alloys on that. It's it's a desirability factor.
Yeah.
But then affordability, like, it's a big thing, because we're not also like, we might all have an extra few bob in our back pockets now, but it still has to make sense. So affordability does come down to the way you buy cars now is that cars have completely changed. You buy a purchase. The days of like thinking like, oh sure, like, I'm not going to own that car, that's all gone now. And there's new financial plans that you can get, like PCP, and PCP is basically stands for a personal contract plan. You see them advertised everywhere, but it allows to basically, because of the way the finance offer is ran by the banks, it allows now the car brands to sell cars. Not that the car is going to cost you 30,000, but actually the car is only going to cost you €250 a month for basically 36 months. That's it. Now, without getting into the whole T's and C's of what it is, but that's the affordability. So by the brands working with the banks and with the finance companies, they've made it more affordable to buy cars. Everyone still gets paid. The brands still get paid. The bank still gets paid. You get to have a car. There's obviously some T's and C's that come with it, and you get to have the lifestyle. So look at the way the boom in the market when it came to the car brands now is the new SUV range. Everybody wants an SUV. It's like, it's not quite a mommy's Jeep. It's not a soccer mom's Jeep, but at the same time, the husband can still drive it, but the husband's happy, or the man is happy driving it, and his girlfriend is like, it likes being in it. And it's kind of like a little upper class, but it's not too much upper class. It's this perfect model that's in between everything, and it just lets you. And it's a massive trend, and it's like something I've only seen in the 5 years or 7 years that I'm working with cars, or even just as a grow up. I've never seen anything like the SUV craze kick off in the way it has.
Sorry, recently or
recently.
Like what's recently? Like in the last year, or the last 10?
Last 3 or 4 years, the SUV model range in the marketplace has kicked off. To this day, like where Volkswagen have actually brought out 3 SUVs this year. Hyundai are after bringing out. They have 3 new SUVs. They have, like, everybody's coming out, and it's this perfect little, like, where you're getting a big chunky car, you're getting something really like, this is big, this isn't getting this, and it has all the bells and whistles, it has all the connectivity, you get into it, syncs with your phone, it has Bluetooth, fuck it, some of them park themselves and all that. But the difference is it has all that desirability factor, but at the same time it's only costing you the same as like a couple of €100 a month. Yeah. So they've made cars affordable to buy. So when you actually look at what you get with a car now compared to what you used to get, obviously technology has come along, obviously the cost of building a car have come down slightly, and there's so many different factors to take in, but it's a case of, and what it all comes down to is desirability and affordability. And that's why car purchases, and thankfully now car purchases are back up, the market is doing well. There is some challenges out there at the moment, but it's a really strong industry, and it drives a lot of jobs. So it's great to see that it's doing so well in the country.
I want to pick your brain on electric cars. Before I do, I just want to mention one thing more about advertising, especially on TV advertising. I'm just interested to hear your take on this, because it's something that really kind of pisses me off. The ad comes up, and like we're approaching Christmas, so I'll stick with a Christmas theme one. The ad starts off, the kid's eyes wake up, or the kid's eyes open up, and maybe there's two beds in the one room. They kind of look to each other, and there's this moment, and the two of them jump out of bed and go skidding down the hall, and it's obviously Christmas morning, and they run into the parents and they start jumping. Santy's been here, and everyone that has kids or has ever been a kid is just there, kind of smiling to themselves, going, "Ah, yeah, that's what fucking life is all about, fucking class." And they run down to the sitting room, and there's this pristine tree and all the professionally gift wrapped boxes, and the lighting is perfect, and the kids get absolutely everything they want. The mum and dad kind of glance over at each other and kind of smile, and Tesco. And you're like, you could have put fucking anything there, Vodafone, Guinness, fucking you name it, you could have thrown anything in there. And is there an element of the ad agencies coming up with almost, like, have we gone so far down this emotional response advertising model that the ad companies are getting so good at what they do that they can literally create something and then just practically sell it to fucking anyone? Because that ad that I just kind of outlined there does work for anyone. Like, you could slap Volkswagen on the end of that and it's still a good ad. It's all the better nearly if it's Volkswagen, if it's something, a bit off the wall. What's your, again, before we go back to cars, and I want to talk in particular about electric cars, on that.
So I think it's a case of, within our business, we get to work with a lot of with all the agencies, and we get to work with a lot of cool creative agencies. And I know a lot of people that work in creative agencies, and there's a lot of hot talent out there. I think what you're talking about is even this is more on a global level, like, or even European level. It's a case of, so what type of ads appeal to the audience? And I think, there's always that warm, fuzzy feeling, and I think the most obvious one to do is the one that you just explained. I think it's the most simple approach. Is it the one that'll stand out the most? No, it won't. It won't. And is there a case of, like, if a brand comes to you and say, let's do an ad, can we get that right? Can everyone get it 100% right? I wouldn't say so, but can most people get close to that warm fuzzy feeling? Yeah, they can. But then you have the companies that bring it to the next level, where it's a case of this really weird trend of, like, everyone's like, oh, I can't wait till such and such brings out their Christmas ad just to see what it's like. And there's such, and, like, imagine the pressure that's on those advertising agencies. Like, we have an ad, and this is like, when our ad comes out, it's like, it's a sign for, like, Christmas has started, and they have that pressure. And they've now brought it on so far themselves that it's a case of people relate what they do as being a sign of Christmas time. And for the life of me now, a couple of the brands that would be known for that, they've gone clean out of my head. But there'd be big department stores or whatever they would. And it's a big part of tradition nearly, as in, like, oh, I can't wait to see such and such as ad come up.
Is it Arnott's that do the display in the window?
I think so. I don't know if they still...
The moving crib and things like that. I remember that as a kid. That was a thing. We went to Dublin to see that.
Yeah, and that was like... Yeah, that was a thing. Or Brown Thomas's window was a big thing, that you're up there and you looked at Brown Thomas. But Santa is still a massive thing in Ireland. So I know a friend of mine's daughter, or a friend of mine's sister is, she'd be in her late teens, and she still goes to Arnott's. And I think he still goes with them as well. And they all meet up every Christmas and Christmas Eve, and they go to Arnott's. But they were telling me, I was up in their house there as a really close friend of my family. And I was up in their house last year, and I was asking them, they're like, oh yeah, we still went to see Santa this year in Ireland. And I'm like, but like Aoife's 17, 18, and she's like, oh yeah, it's grand, but it's family tradition, that's what we do. And they were explaining to me, like, the amount of other families that would be there, and all past the age of, like, be whatever about Santa and everything else, but, like, they're all there, and this was the family tradition. They were going in, and they're going and see that. And I think now Christmas is such an obvious one, that when it comes to advertising, that it's a case of, it's very easy, because whatever about all the shite that goes on through the year, it's like Christmas means, well, what it should mean to people is it should mean family. Whatever about the rest of the bollocks about religion and all that shit. But what it should mean is about family and about people being close together. And I think it's a really easy win for advertisers to tap into that. But to bring it back, social media has managed to tap into it all year round. So TV are tapping into the emotional feeling at certain times and certain events, and it's like Olympics. Like when you talk about the Olympics, I like a lot of people wouldn't know this because obviously I studied advertising when I was in college, and it's like one of the best stories I ever heard about a brand tapping into the emotional response was Dove. Wasn't Dove.
The soap crowd.
The soap crowd, yeah, the soap crowd fan. But it wasn't Dove, it was P&G. So P&G basically owned this whole web of like, you know, products that you see in Boots and you see across other like stores for cleaning, cosmetics, all that type of shit. And what they did was when they sponsored the Olympics in London, they basically focused in on their campaign was about mothers and caring for the mother. So they could have done the obvious one where they just basically plaster P&G and their brands all over the Olympics and everything else. But what P&G actually did was they went and all the mothers of the athletes,
the bastards. I see where this is going.
All the mothers, right, of the athletes, they flew every one of the mothers to the Olympics. And they looked after them. They gave them all care packs. They made sure they were covered every day. They made sure, like, for anything they needed, they looked after the mothers. Because if it wasn't for the mothers, none of those athletes would have been there. And their whole campaign leading up to the Olympics was about, like, when it went live. So this whole thing about what the mothers were doing in the background was going on for ages. So they're building up content. They're building up, like, you know, social media sharing. They're building all this. They're getting all the content going in the background. And then they launched it. And their whole Olympics campaign was about mothers. Can you ever, like, your mother was the one that drove, you might remember the ads, like, your mother was the one that drove you to your, like, at 6 o'clock in the morning to your swimming lessons. It was your mother that picked you up when you fell over from doing gymnastics.
It was your mother who didn't buy that dress. She bought those new dance shoes.
Yeah, it was your mother that did this. And they really tapped into it. Like, for fuck's sake. And you'd be a horrible pig to say anything different. But they tapped into that. So instead of tapping into the athletes, they went one step back. Something that I was like, fucking love you, ma'am. Do you know what I mean? And they tapped into that warm, fuzzy feeling, into that emotions inside you. And you're watching it there at the Olympics, and you're like, you're getting that lump in your throat.
They fucking reached in through your eyes and raped your brain. That's what they did. Like,
fucked your heart, like. Yeah. You know what I mean? Never mind about pulling on the heartstrings. They fucking tugged on that hard, like, and they focused on that, and they brought out a campaign, and it had a massive, like, you're such a big P&G are one of the biggest companies when it comes to
kind of disposable kind of products.
When it comes to FMCG goods, and it's a case of their market share grew. And that was a key thing of doing that, and that comes from a lot of planning. That's a big kind of market move. But I suppose if you're gonna get in the money where you advertise in the Olympics, and like when you are the main sponsor of the Olympics, no brand can advertise in that area of the world for, what is it like? I think it's like 3 months before and 3 months after the Olympics.
No way.
You have the rights to advertise, and
the biggest televised thing.
They're the biggest thing. None of their competitors can go against them. Like the Olympics, whatever country the Olympics go into, they have the rights of all the advertising. It's like the bleeding cartel or something, like, when it comes to, maybe not the cartel, but anyway.
No, I don't think that's too unfair.
It's just like they take over. It's a massive money generator. So to bring it back into, like, I suppose then Christmas time, and that's what it is. It's just it's an easy time to target an audience, to get that warm fuzzy feeling. And the key thing about advertising is it all comes down to targeting and using it. And before the internet, a quick way to get the fuzzy feeling going was the thing with targeting people with a family feeling. My favourite ad on TV at Christmas time is the Coca-Cola trucks.
It's synonymous with Christmas.
Yeah.
And the Kellogg's one as well, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't there it's not maybe as...
It's good, like, you know, it's like Santa. And
but this way, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I do, 100%. Yeah.
You know? And
Kellogg's have got away with for years of using the same one. Or then, like, maybe something that's not even advertising is the snowman. Or, that
was on post, was it?
Was this... Yeah, I was just about to say to you. Well, like, shit, I was just thinking, like, did the snowman come out on the back of an ad? Or did the snowman just come out because it was a short musical?
I don't know. I think that's is that like a classic?
When I think it was a classic. Like, but like when you think about it now, if that was an ad, and we're still talking about it. But I think, like, but Jesus, when the snowman came back out in our day, Fran, like, that was like the way some kids might look at, like, you know, the latest Pixar film.
Yeah,
that's the way we saw that thing.
Yeah,
but that voice, like, I'm here. I won't sing again, I'm sorry. That was me attempting to sing there and failed miserably. But yeah, just those moments like that kind of clinch in, like, you know. So.
No, absolutely. And before we go down another unrelated rabbit hole, cars and electric cars. You're in a kind of unique position to see where the kind of consumer automobile industry in Ireland and maybe further afield is kind of shifting. Are electric cars the equivalent of digital media in comparison to print? Is that what we're looking at? Like, is in 10 years' time, will there be any, or 20 years' time, will you still be able to buy a diesel or a petrol car, or what way is it going?
I don't know. I think the analogy of like looking at, I suppose, electric cars is it the way things. I think the way you need to look at electric cars is that it's an industry evolving, and with everything that will be changed, I think the only difference is that this change will come around faster than maybe some people would like. Some brands are getting on board a lot quicker. They have their hybrid models out and they have their electric cars out, their fully electric cars. And the technology that's in electric cars is getting better. So the two things that electric cars come up against is that the time it takes to charge them.
Yep.
And how far they can run on a charge.
Of course.
You know, so they have the speed down. Speed when it first came out, they were really slow.
Yeah, braking, safety, that's just nailed.
Yeah, that's all sorted now. So what they're trying to get down now is charging time. So I'll give you an interesting fact about electric cars. Electric cars are better. I'm just going to throw a couple of facts out here. It's like, I hope any car brand that hears me talk about this is like, it's just me, a couple of interesting things I've come across. Electric cars are great. And in the short, we have a problem with the climate and with basically pollution, and we need to address that. And a really quick solution there is obviously get a higher density of electric cars in the car, which will basically reduce the amount of carbons that are coming out of petrol and diesel cars being ran on the road. And I think, hands up to the government, the best thing that came out of the budget this year, besides us all getting a fiver back in our pocket, was basically they reduced, made it 0 BIK on electric cars. So what that basically means is that if you're a company and you decide that your company your staff can have electric cars, they can have it and they don't have to pay any BIK. So the cheapest BIK you can have, benefit in kind payment that you have to. So if you have a company car, you don't pay insurance, you don't pay tax, but you have to pay a certain amount of money. It's like a tax, stamp tax or whatever. It's generally,
is it 10 or 20 cent per kilometre or
yeah,
100 kilometres?
Sometimes it's done anything, but if you're not doing enough kilometres, then there's just a flat rate. There's a rate thing. So I don't know the full calculations on it.
Yeah.
But let's say, for instance, that a normal Joe Soap who gets a Volkswagen Golf would probably pay like maybe €320 a month on BIK, which works out a hell of a lot cheaper when you don't have to pay for the car, you don't have to pay for the insurance, you're not paying for fuel, it's all been paid for your company.
Yeah, so this is an employer-supplied car,
yeah, this is an employer-supplied car. So now what the government have done is, and this is going to be a big boost, I think, in 2018 for electric cars, is that they're after saying that electric cars, if your employee has a car, they don't have to pay anything. So straight away, if your employee wants to have a company car and is happy to take on an electric car, they're all about up to €320 a month. That's a lot of money. That's
fucking right, it is.
Yeah, that's nearly six. Like, it does on a very, very base model. And there's some people who have like company cars, I know for a fact, and they'd have executive cars, and it's costing like maybe €500 or €600 a month on BIK. But because they do the mileage and because they don't have to pay for the servicing and they don't have to pay for the maintenance of the car, it still works out a hell of a lot cheaper than actually owning the car. So you take it. So this for instance, if you're a company and you have a car, maybe it wouldn't be suited for people that are out doing like, you know, field jobs and they're out driving all the time. But if it's a case of you're just driving to and from work, or you're just driving like wherever it is to get to work and you're using your car a normal time, this is going to be massive. And what you're going to see is next year you will see a trend of, and the main franchise manufacturers or OEMs that are in Ireland, they need to focus on this, and they will be going now to companies. They'll see who has the largest fleet, and they will be seeing how many of these cars they can have. And I believe what the government should be doing, if they're not doing already, is that they should be targeting manufacturers on to get so many cars out. And if they get so many electric cars out, they should be getting tax breaks. And then, you know, it creates this loop where basically they're getting more and more electric cars.
Yeah, it's a positive feedback loop.
Positive feedback, very much strengths. The bombshell.
Drum roll, please.
The drum roll, please. Having an electric car now and driving an electric car now is better for the environment.
Okay.
But the electric car will naturally come to an end because it's a battery driven car, and after a while the cells, it won't work, and then the car, and like every normal automobile, the car will come to its actual end of life, and then the car will have to go into wastage.
Well, sorry to cut across you, but I mean, presumably you'd have like the smartphone setup that the battery basically clips out of the car, you put it in your battery.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that bit. I'm just talking about the car coming to end of life, be it it's crashed, be it like the electric cars are still open to being crashes.
Of course, yeah.
They're open to, like, you know, wear and tear. They're open to, some cars will last longer than others,
yeah,
and everything else. So at the moment when a car comes to its end of life, be it that it's a shorter life or it's lived on and it's like, you know, it's still going around 10, 20 times or whatever else, it's 10 times worse to get rid of an electric car than it is a normal car.
Presumably because of the battery.
Yeah.
And what is it lithium that these are?
It's just really bad for the environment. And it's like, what nobody has talked about how these cars are going to be disposed of.
The current generation of cars.
Any electric car that comes out, when they come to end of life, it's basically, it's like we need to be already looking at how can these batteries be disposed of, because be it we ship them all off, this extra weight of like what they'll need to use to create the batteries and create electric cars is going to have a negative effect. And then you have to look at, well, are we better off just driving diesel now and working on getting those diesels engines down onto lower emissions,
pollution rates or
whatever else, electric cars, or it's a case of we all jump in and drive electric cars and the problem is solved for 10, 20 years, but in 10, 12, 20 years we're going to have a massive problem with all this basically cars. So I don't fully, I was basically at an event recently and it was a topic and we were talking about electric cars. Now I think electric cars are great, and what I'm hoping is that in the space that we bring out the electric cars, and because technology is going so fast, that we won't have to worry about that problem. But there's always a negative side to everything.
And what's Elon Musk's answer? Like his big interest at the minute, as far as I'm aware, not that I'm very close to it by any stretch of the imagination, but electric cars with Tesla and automation, which is another thing that I want to touch on. But a big one of his as well, on top of SpaceX and half a dozen things that he's involved in, is household batteries. Mm-hmm. So the idea being that you have a battery the size of your hot water cylinder or something, like some sort of monolith thing in the center of your house, so that, for example, every roof tile on your house is now a solar panel and it charges a huge big battery, and that basically runs your house. So his aim, I think, is to have each independent or each standalone house in America, say, essentially off the grid. So if he's working on something like that, presumably the battery can be, either upgraded or
and maybe it is, and that's the bit. Maybe so. It's a case of maybe I'm just maybe I'm not, as I said before, you need to be educated at different points. But it's a case of, as it current stands, like it's you don't hear anyone how the batteries are going to be handled with. And maybe it is better off, but I think if there is an initiative like that where, we can run the houses where we don't have them on the national grid and they can basically be self-contained, pretty much is what you're saying. Like
that's I think what he's striving for. Yeah,
so every house they're self-contained and you're off the charts. Then that's brilliant. But again, as I said, as we're evolving and as technology is getting smarter and it's getting more advanced, then maybe batteries won't have the same problems that they have in the current state.
Yeah, no, it's mad, because only recently I was in my local kind of hardware store, a higher place actually. I was in getting some sort of a tool, but I couldn't help but notice that they had a range of battery operated tools that I wasn't really familiar with. Like I knew that cordless drills have been around forever, but like this place was selling electric chainsaws, battery operated electric chainsaws, and leaf blowers, and there was even literally a battery operated lawnmower. I couldn't believe it, and this isn't, there was no such thing as an electric lawnmower not that long ago, never mind a fucking rechargeable battery one. So there's been leaps and bounds made in that, and hopefully will continue to be made, and will solve that kind of waste problem that you're talking about. But on automation, have you an interest in it? Are the car dealerships talking about it?
Which electric cars?
Well, yeah. Well, you see, I suppose all the talk of autonomous cars are like self-driving cars. I would have assumed they were all going to be electric. Has there been talk of autonomous petrol and diesel cars?
No, I think no. So it's not a topic I'm fully up to speed on, but I think it's a case of Tesla are obviously leading the way when it comes to the self-drive cars. The other brands aren't trying to get into self-drive cars yet. They're just still they're still focusing on basically just having a good electric car.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So Tesla have come out with, they've come out with basically, they have come out with, as I said to you before, about like when you are a manufacturer, a publisher, or whatever your business is, you have to answer the why. You have to answer the why and to be a solution. And I believe all the brands at the moment are just trying to, just like, they know electric cars are still a little bit alien to people. So what they're doing is they're at the market where they're bringing out electric cars to be, electric cars are cool, electric cars are accessible. I think if not my next car, the car after will definitely be an electric car, a full-on electric car. I'd love it to be BMW i8, but we'll see what happens. But
if you're listening, BMW.
If you're listening, BMW,
there's a good deal in Dundee for you.
If you want to get in contact with me, I'll swap my Mercedes for it. But it's and I think it's a case of, you know, I hope to have an electric car, and I think it'll be something at that time that will fit into the style of what I need. But I think what Tesla are trying to do, Tesla are trying to be like the future. They're trying to be the lead in the frontier. And like, I remember when Eamon Fallon told me about it, and he was like going over, Eamon and Brian, the last time they were over in the States, they rented Teslas and they were driving and did the self-drive, and I said it was like surreal. You're driving down the road and you're coming to a bend and you're like literally trying not to touch the steering wheel. And you're trying to get used to it. He says it's mental, like, and I think it's brilliant. I love seeing advances in technology like that we're getting to, like, remember when we were kids and you used to watch Jetsons and we're like, oh geez, our lives are never going to be like that. The Jetsons were those basically the Flintstones, like, you know, 100 years on.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to the stage now, we're getting to it where we're seeing, like, you know, all these technologies and things coming out that we never thought we'd see in our lifetime are coming out now. But I think Tesla are trying to be like at the front of that. Not so much, I don't want to say as a marketing scheme, but like that's their unique thing. They're advanced. Maybe you could call them the Apple of car manufacturers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the automobile industry.
Yeah,
absolutely.
the automobile industry. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about people gravitating more towards experiences than, say, products, which I think is a massively beneficial thing. I see a lot more people, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm doing it more of it myself, but there seems to be a lot more people out running the roads, out cycling, competing in triathlons. There seems to be a new race here and there, all over the place, all the time, which has been great. And you're in that world as well. When we were working in Aircon together, I remember you got your first bike. It was your first bike as an adult, say.
Yeah.
And I remember two things in particular. You raving, A, about there being disc brakes on it, which was the best thing in the world, and B, that it was red, I think.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, man. Yeah.
And I actually can't believe it took you about 45 minutes to mention your mountain biking. And I want to move away from all the fucking digital media and how social media is going to eat your children alive and all the rest of it, and move swiftly on to the experience that different people are having, with you in particular, in relation to mountain biking.
Yeah.
You bought that bike in Aircon 10 years ago, and what the fuck happened? Because something flipped a switch in your brain and you lost the run yourself.
Yeah.
To put it mildly.
I feel like you've been holding back. So I used to, when I was a kid, and I would have been in secondary, I used to be, and even when I was in primary school, I always had a BMX, and I always had, like, you know, a bike, especially BMX, and I was always like obsessed with going into the woods and jumping off things and jumping over things and breaking myself up and doing things that I knew I couldn't do, but I was always still trying to do it on my bike. And I always still remember to this day when I used to leave school and be in first or second year, and I'd be cycling home, and I'd go through Malahide Castle, and I'd literally, like, instead of just cycling down this path that went through the forest, I literally weaved in and out, and what should have been a 20-minute cycle used to take me 3 hours, because every single thing that resembled a ramp or a jump, I was trying to throw myself off or bait myself into a tree, or I don't know what the fuck I was doing, or just jumping off things on my bike. And I just always loved it. And I remember as I got a little bit older, then I got a mountain bike, and I'd always remember it was like a Trek 7000, and like it was just like, it was a bike, and it was like £700, and it was like, it was a big deal. And I think my mum and dad gave me half the money, and then I had to pay them back, you know, over time. And this was a proper bike at the time. Like, this was like close to £1,000 worth of a bike, and it was mental. And I had this thing, and I was just fascinated by it. But I was fascinated by it because of where I could go on it and what I could do on it, and I felt like I was invincible on it. And I was like, I was just a boy with a bike. I was just a kid with a bike. But then my dad would bring me up to the place like the Hellfire Club, and he'd go for a walk, and I'd go off, and I'd be flying around the place like that as well, and just being around the forest. And it was just something that it was just like passionate. So then as I got older, like, you know, drink took over. And then I was like, had Sophie, and all these different life things happened, and I kind of didn't get it. I just ended up moving away from my bike. I literally went everywhere on my bike. And but then I was like, do you know what it was? It was a Cycle to Work scheme came along.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah.
Cycle to Work scheme came along, and all of a sudden you could have a bike worth up to €1,000, or you could spend €1,000 on, and you could only had to pay back whatever you got, it tax free. So I was like, happy days, and I went on and started doing research, and straight away my love and my passion for looking at bikes and all the thrills that went, it came rushing back. And because,
sorry to cut across you, but at that point the internet would have only really recently became a thing, so now you could, you know, Google all the different types of bikes, all the different brands.
So you could go on to all the online stores within a limit. You could go in through your desktop. There was no mobile websites or anything at that stage, but you could go through the desktop and everything else, and you could look at it. You could research. You could look at different products. You could look at, like, you know, videos of what people are doing at a very, very minimum level. There was still no YouTube at that stage. YouTube was only 12 years old, so actually there was YouTube, but not as we know it. Scotty. So it was like it was a case you went on, looked at the products, and it was that whole desirable. So you were looking and feeling, and then you kind of looking at the product, and then I went out to the bike shop and I was having a look at it, and I saw it and the experience of it, and I was like, right, I'm having this bike. And then I was like, but because I was an adult then, I was able to just put the bike in the back of my car and head up somewhere. But because of the internet, then I was able to look up, and I was like, where do people go mountain biking? And because I had the internet, I was able to, like, where do people go mountain biking in Dublin? And next, you know, there's a place in Ticknock. I can drive to Ticknock. I'll go mountain biking. Where else do people go mountain biking? People go mountain biking in the back of, like, you know, Glendalough or Lara or Elders. And all of a sudden, these places that you would never find if you drive around, you could just look up, and then you could go to those places. And when you got there, you found them, and it was because of the internet, it made them more accessible to get there, or it gave you knowledge that you wouldn't get, because I wouldn't know anyone that did many mountain biking. So I'd be like, well, where the fuck do you go? Like,
it opened your horizon.
Yeah, it opened my horizon. So I went up. But from there, I had that bike for a couple of months. That bike was worth €1,000. I had that for a couple of months. Then I sold that. Then I bought another bike, and it was like just a front suspension bike. But then I got my first proper bike, and I remember it was when I was in Grad Ireland. I bought this bike for nearly €2,000, and it was called a Kona Entourage. And it was like, this is a couple of years later, and there was like loads of promo videos to it, and fuck me, like I was bleeding 28 at this stage, and I was sucked into this. I was like, this is the business. I want to do this. I was like a child again, like, and I got the bike. But the thing about the bike is, and I suppose not that I want to get into it, but I'm a very, like, my brain never turns off. It's like the internet, it's like social media, it's always on the go. I'm always thinking about something. I can never really, really detached away from just, like, you know, having some downtime. But the reason why mountain biking has such an impact on my life is that when I'm out there and you cycle up to the top of the hill, and then the buzz is that you come flying back down through the trees, through the chairs. All I think about is just basically when I'm on my bike. I just think about there and then. You can't think about anything else, because if you do, you crash your bike or you crash into a tree and you're going to hurt yourself. So it forces you to just switch off and just focus on living that moment. You can't, like, you can stop and take photographs if you want, but you're still living in the moment and you're still doing what you want to do. And for me, it's very passionate driven. And then on that bike, I remember one day I was cycling around Ticknock, and this is kind of like, you know, a bi-weekly thing. Then it's going up, or nearly every week I'd make an effort to go up to the mountains and go for cycling. You know, I was getting better and better, and getting fitter at doing it. And I remember one day then I was coming down and I heard next to this grown man fucking scream out, and it was basically a lad, Stefan, that I met at the time, and he'd basically, after coming off his bike, and he was completely lost and didn't know how to get down to the blue light club, so I brought him down, and he knew where to go then, and he was like, oh, I'll meet up with you. And from him then I met another person called Declan, and then from Declan I met Mark, and now I have a whole web of friends that I have through mountain biking, and we all share the same experience, and we go out all the time, we go mountain biking, and from that then got into racing. And at each year now that I've done it, I've got myself a new bike, and I've got more heavily into racing. But like in these years that I've done mountain biking now, I've done things where like I've raced down the world's longest mountain bike race in the world, like the downhill race in the world, and what that involves is basically starting on the top of Mount Blanc in Alpe d'Huez, and it's starting on a black ski slope where you're 3,500 meters up, the highest accessible place on the Alps where you can get to on a basically a ski lift, and you fucking race down that mountain with 500 or 2,000, well there's 2,000 but it goes in waves of 500, and you're flying down, there's helicopters over your head, it's pure carnage, like you've no control over the bike in the snow. Then you do like you're racing around the side of an Alp, out across the Alps, and then you come out and you see a valley, and then you've got like spectators everywhere. And that's a real extreme experience, and I've done that twice, and it was amazing, like being over there mountain biking. And you can't explain what it's like that every morning when you wake up. And this is the thing with mountain biking now, is that all the ski resorts in the world, they used to have no business during the summer, but now they all open themselves up to mountain biking. So you go over and you get a ski pass, and you get the lift up to the tops, and you're standing on top of these mountains, and like you're nutting. You're like, in comparison to the world, it just makes you feel it's just like you don't belong standing up there. But then you're coming down, and you're like, the places you get to see on your mountain bike and coming down, it's surreal. It's places I never thought I would see, and places that are experiences. But instead of just taking it in, you're fully engrossed in where you are, because you're coming down through the terrain. Like I can tell you that coming down from the side of the Mount Blanc, there's like maybe 7 different types of terrain that you come across. So you start off on slate, then you get to this real kind of volcanic kind of rock, then you come across this real sticky kind of red muck, and it's like, but you're coming down and you're seeing the different layers of the mountain as it comes down to the bottom till you get to the village, and you're coming down through the trees, and it's just mind-blowing. And to me, like, that's where my real passion is, like on my bike. And but then you even bring that to a step. So last year was my biggest year of racing. I started doing downhill racing. So I've done enduro racing. Enduro racing is when you cycle up and down the mountain, and you're working on kind of different stages, almost like rally driving. And but downhill racing is intense. Downhill racing is like, you basically go to the top of the mountain, you get lift to the top of the mountain on the back of a trailer, and you go up there, and you're in different categories and everything else. So this year is my first year doing it, so I was racing in sport, and you're literally at the top of the mountain, and you've got like a beam that you have to cross, and the whole idea is that whoever can get from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain in the fastest time through a course that is set out, and you're coming to like, you have different features where it's a rock feature and you're going across big boulders and everything else to get through that. Then you come to a jump feature. Then you could come to a feature where it's really tight single track and you're going between trees. Then you come to a feature and it could be a road gap. And a road gap is what it is you come to it and you literally have to jump over a whole road and land on the other side, and you've got spectators on either side cheering you on, and you've got fucking lunatics in the forest, and they've got chainsaws without the blade on. It's like rum, 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 as you're going through the fucking thing. One time I was coming down the national champs, and it was like a fella with a flamethrower, and as he came around the corner, he's like, ah! And he's like cheering you on,
as if going down a fucking mountain full tilt, and a fucking bicycle wasn't intense enough.
Yeah, you have all these lunatics, and it's a really, really, like, there's loads of spectators out for them, and that made me really think that, like, you know, the level I'm after getting into it. And it's like, it's a case of a lot of the people that are standing on the side of the track are all those people that are into doing and think like, oh fuck, I could never do that. And that was the thing, like, I thought like years ago, well actually, to be honest with you, I've always just like, every year I do something more, something crazier on my bike, or I push it to the next level. I haven't stopped pushing it yet. I really haven't, and I'm not finished it. I like, generally sitting here now, my goal is to be basically the national champion.
I was going to ask, like, what kind of fucking level are we talking here?
So I want to be, I would love to basically, so the races I do the national, I'm doing the national league. So this year I'd never done downhill racing, and in my category I came 5th or fifth or fourth, fifth overall in sport.
And that's a seniors overage category.
So this is like, well, sport is kind of open to all ages, but next, like, it's now there's masters, but I'll see which category I go into next year. But so you do that, but it came down to with downhill racing, because you're racing in a category and you're all kind of around the same level. So obviously then you have the elites right up the top, and you have down the masters and all that. But I'm literally my first year into it, and like, one of the races, my last race coming down, I didn't get a podium all year round, and I came fourth in the last race of the year. And I was like, the difference of me coming fourth or standing on the podium was 1.7 seconds.
And what is that in downhill mountain biking terms? Nothing or loads or what?
It's nothing.
Nothing,
Yeah, so it's a really competitive, because the downhill course might be 2 minutes 30 seconds. You know, it'll be around that. It usually a course will be.
So the downhill course is how long? Sorry,
it'll be between 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
To get from top to bottom.
Okay.
So depending on the length of the course, obviously, but you'll have it. So that race in particular, the course was being done like in 2 minutes 30 seconds. That's going down. That's like a drop down all the way from, like, looking at that place in Carrick in Wicklow. It's a pretty long course to get down. And I know people might be thinking, it's like, oh, you're just flying down a mountain. Throwing yourself down a mountain and basically keeping an average speed of maybe 50 or 60 kilometers an hour as you're basically descending through a mountain and jumping through features and keeping the bike upright, and the bike could be ground. And on that particular day, at the end of the course, there was after been raining. So when you came across the last features, like when it's after been raining and you're coming across a bike and you come across a root of a tree, it's like hitting ice on a car.
Yeah,
and it's just like a fling you off, and then you've got crowd shouting at you as well. And it's literally like, there's moments where you have to go all or nothing, and it's either go big or go home, and you just have to commit to it. And it's pure adrenaline. The amount of times you come down the mountain and you have people shouting at you, cheering at you, and everything else. And I raced in the Enduro World Series earlier in the year as well. So the World Series came to Ireland, and I got a place in it. It was like a lottery, got a place into it, and I competed in it. Didn't do great, but I competed it, and I finished that race with the world's pros. And that's the great thing about mountain biking, because wherever the events are on around the world, so the World Championship is on in Fort William in Wales, in Scotland next year, in during, I think it's like June. I can apply for that. So if I think I'm good enough, you can apply for it. Now, if you were to get a bike next year, Fran, you could apply for it, but you wouldn't, because it's mental. So you know if you're at
too advanced, basically.
Yeah, so if you're able to do it, you can take it on. And that's the great thing about it. It's a type of sport where if you want to progress, you can just put yourself forward, and then you can basically go for it. And that's the thing I really like about it. There's no limitations. It's not because you're a superstar you can't do. If you're good enough and you have the balls to take on the course, you can go and do it. But
you said two things there. If you're good enough and you have the balls, what I was thinking, what I wanted to ask you was, what's more important, or if you could break it into a percentage, or like, is it 50-50 between nerve and technical ability?
Yeah, I think there's definitely bits. So there's lads I go mountain biking with all the time, and we go out for our weekly spins, or they slag me because every now and again I'll be like, oh, I'll come out and then I won't show up, or I'll cancel, whatever. But I'd go out biking with them, and they would be faster with me than me on the bike, or they might be a case of they have a better skill coming down to the mountain, but they wouldn't race downhill. And what downhill comes down to, is that you have to accept that when you crash in downhill racing, because you're going so fast and because it's so intense, if you crash, you're most likely going to really fucking hurt yourself. You're going to injure yourself. And that's the thing. You need to put that away, where you're not worrying about like that fear factor, I think. So it is come down to a bit of nerve. It's about pushing the limits a little bit. And then the other type of mountain bike racing is that you're racing down mountains, but you don't have the same intensity of features. You don't have the big jumps. You don't have the crazy features that are like, oh, if you can get around, you might break a couple of bones or whatever, like,
yeah, puncture a lung
or whatever, like,
brain
yeah,
damage, just minor stuff.
Like my whole side is separated, like my shoulder and everything else. But like, you take on the minor things, but there is a risk to take with downhill racing. But the difference with downhill racing is that you have full body armor, you have a full face helmet on, you have all the guards, you don't take it lightly, you go in.
So just to kind of pause you a second,
yeah.
The full body armor, like, you know what that is. The only other person in the country that might know what that is knows what it is, but like for everyone else who's listening, like,
full body armor is full. There's different grades of body armor you can get now. So body armor is like obviously something you put up over your head, and it's like
a bulletproof vest.
It's like a kind of a hard compressed kind of plastic on the front. It also has a spine protector on the back. You have the protectors on the side to protect your ribs. You also have your knee pads on. You might have shin guards on as well for rocks coming up. You also have your elbow pads. And then some cases people wear neck braces, and then you have basically a full face helmet as well. The neck brace is just something that sits on your shoulder, and it stops your helmet from rocking too far forward or too far back. So it stops your neck.
Whiplash.
Yeah, so it stops your neck from breaking. But like that, one of my mates that is on the team I race for, so I race with a team called Bree Racing, and
so
Bree
Racing.
Bree, so Bree down in Wexford. So it's called Bree Racing. The team's called Bree Racing, and Stephen in round 3, one of the lads came down, and he basically came to a tabletop jump, which is basically there's a jump, you enter it at a jump, and you have to clear the top of the table, and then you land on the other side. And he went into the jump kind of funny, and his bike kind of tilted in the air, and when he landed twisted, and he's now in a back brace.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And like, what's his the word escapes me, but will he be all right in a month or 6 months or what?
No, well, he's in the back brace I think for 6 or 7 months now, so he has to wear that, and he's still in it now, and he's still just getting back to kind of walking around. So there's always that concern, and like on that particular race that day, the practice and the race day had to be stopped 3 or 4 times, because at the races there always has to be an ambulance on standby. So there's always an ambulance at the events, and there's always 2 paramedics. And the race will be black flagged, because if both paramedics are obviously being occupied, or if the ambulance is gone, then practice has to stop.
Of course.
So it's like it's full on all the time. There's always a risk that there's always someone that breaks something at one of the races.
And that guy that broke his back, is he itching to get back in the bike, or is he going to go? Fuck that.
I don't know. I think when it does get to like a stage where if you do have something serious like that, you're gonna rethink what you do.
Lose your nerve a little.
Yeah,
maybe?
I think so. Like personally for me now, last year I did the Mega Avalanche, which is the big race in the Alps. But then I decided just to go away for a couple of week or 2 on my own, just to get away. So I went over to Canada, and the specific reason I went to Canada is because I wanted to go mountain biking in Whistler. And I went all the way over to Whistler to do...
Sorry, Whistler is a town or a mountain?
Sorry, Whistler is a very famous ski resort in Vancouver.
Okay.
And it's where everyone goes snowboarding and skiing, but it's also where people say mountain biking was born. And Whistler was the first ever ski resort that basically turned itself into a mountain bike park during the summer. So they invested heavily to go in and built all these trails, and they've got these world famous trails, and one or two, like they have like an old train carriage that's up in the forest, and it's called Freight Train, and you literally come along and there's a jump, and you jump up on top of the freight train, you go across the roof of the freight train, and then you drop off the far side of it down into another jump, and then you're into a gully, and they have all these bridges, and lads are jumping over each other, and it's like everything that you would have seen on X Games or MTV when you were growing up,
Red Bull
or anything.
Whatever,
that's where this is where those lads go at the summertime. And the reason why I was going over there was because there was this gravity camp, and it was like summer camp for adults, and it's called the Gravity Summer Camp. So gravity is like a term they use for mountain biking, for crazy mountain biking. So you're doing lots of jumps, and gravity, you're in the air and the whole lot. So I was doing over there to do the GSC, and went over there, and the whole unique thing about this is that if you have a few bob, you can go over, and the people who coach you, no matter what level you're at, they bring you to the next level. But they're all the people off Red Bull, they're all the extreme sports pros, they're all the professionals, and you basically do a week training with them. So I was like, grand, so you have breakfast with them, you go through like the day's training, you learn things, they bring up the jumps, they teach you the techniques of what way it meant to control the bike in the air, they teach you how how to handle yourself going into corners, how to like enter a corner, how to exit a corner so you leave with the most
just like rally driving,
100% rally driving, how to drift the bike around the corner, and how to really bring your riding skills to the next level. And that's, I slowly went over there, and like I didn't know anyone I was going over to, went over, and there was like lads there from Colorado, there's lads there from Chicago. I made friends and people that came up from Australia. This is a big thing, this summer camp. It was like maybe 20-25 other lads that were doing it, and it was really good. Unfortunately, on day 1 of the mountain biking, we went up and we're fluting around, and they were kind of sussing out what grade everyone's at, because you kind of tell them what grade you're at, and you're not going to do anything too stupid. Now some of these jumps could be 60 or 70 foot high in the air, and like you're not going to take them on, like, so you kind of suss out what level you're at. But So we look on around lunchtime, and then we went down, had our lunch, and everyone was psyched up. And as you're getting the ski lifts up to go back up the mountain again, to go to like do more things, there's all these signs on the grounds like, take it easy on your first day, first runs, everyone always bins it on their first run, don't be the first one to end up in hospital, all this type of stuff. So we went back up and we're fluting around on the bikes, and I was a little bit tired, and I should have drank more water because of the heat of like, you know, being in Canada at the time. And we're coming across, next to know, I just had this stupid fucking crash. And basically what happened was my front wheel just went off the side of a jump or whatever else, and I went flat down and went sideways into a tree. And whatever about when you hit an Irish tree, like there's a bit of give, there's a bit, there's a bit of give, and there's a bit of a bend in it, like
bit of moss or something.
Yeah, a bit of moss, but like these fucking rainforest fuckers. So I fucking hit it flat on, and I basically, I was like, oh, there's fucking Jesus. So there was a bit of a change. Next to all the Americans, I was like, hi, that's my an American accent there, but I'm walking out of my there. I'm flying through the air. So these Americans go, like, you alright, Simon, you alright? And I was like, yeah, I'm grand. I was like, I think I'm after doing something. They're like, alright. And I stood up and was like, no, fine. I was like, I'm just a bit winded. And it's actually like, you're going to be alright. And the pro lad that had us at that group that day, he was an English lad, and he's like, you're going to be okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm alright. And I was like, I think I just need a bit of deep heat. And he totally got it because he was English, and all the Americans were like, deep heat? Yeah. So I was like, yeah, it's the side. So I got back on the bike and I went and did another jump. And as I came down after this jump, my whole right hand side just compressed down. I was like, oh no, something's gone. Midair. As I landed on the ground, the impact. So I was like, no, look lads, I can't do this. I'm going back down to the hotel room. I need to get this checked out. Long story short, I got down to the thing, and this is on day one. I got down, and by the time I actually made it down to the hotel room, I tried to take my jersey off, and I couldn't. I barely ripped off. My whole AC joint on my right hand side. So your AC joint is the bone that controls the rotator in your arm to make it kind of your shoulder rotate.
And your arm move.
Yeah, that was basically pointing upwards out of the skin, not out pursing out of the skin, but pushing the skin up. And I'd also broke 5 ribs on my right hand side. So I rang the hospital. I rang the receptionist, like, you need to get an ambulance. And they're like, here, look, I'm not going to ring an ambulance. It'll cost you a fortune. We'll just drive you around. So long story short, I basically a grade 4 break on my AC joint and 5 ribs. So on day one, I was pretty much sitting outside a pub in Vancouver taking painkillers and just sitting there, and I couldn't fly home for 5 or 6 days because you're not allowed to fly when you have broken ribs because of the compression. So I had to just basically stick it out and just basically drunk. The only saving grace was while I was there was a yoga festival on. There was 2,000 women over doing yoga for it. So I soldiered on through.
Oh, what's wrong with you? Oh, just a bit of extreme Red Bull mountain bike racing.
I had a 6 rib by the end of that night, broken rib by the end of that night. But anyway, so no, but
keep it clean.
No, this is a family show. So that was like things. But the reason why it's kind of going on about that is what I did learn from, like, that was the worst I've ever broken myself up on my bike. And when I
your bike, because there's another instance that I want to bring back.
Sure, stop. We're going to get in that. But so on my bike, that was definitely the worst I've ever got into breakage. And like I've broken bones. Like my baby finger there is currently broken out of place because of mountain bikes, and I've loads of other scars and bits. But the one thing I learned last year is that you have to be fit. You have to be training. You have to be eating correctly. You have to be eating properly. You have to be training regularly. You have to be building yourself up. And I don't mean like building yourself up to look great in the mirror or to look great in photographs, but that you can actually take a knock. Yeah, and that's the one thing I've learned now this year with racing is like kept the training up all year round. And it's a case of kept at it. So I've took plenty of knocks during the year, and I've bounced myself off boulders, but like in the middle of racing, you just get back up or practice, you kind of like dust it off and keep going. And that's the one thing about the sport. It's very, very demanding on the body, and it's a lot of people will end up walking away. And there's plenty of times where I come into work black and fucking blue down my sides, and it's like you just get on with it. But I enjoy that about the mountain biking, how demanding it is, and how I honestly think it keeps me focused in so many ways, where if I have a race coming up, I focus on that race and I get myself ready for it. It keeps me then, because I'm focused on that outside of work, it helps me being focused on other parts of my life. And I think that's why mountain biking is such a big thing. And I think it's something I'll do well into my 60s and my 70s, as I know many people that do.
Speaking of doing it well into your 60s and 70s. Age-wise, like I'm sure there's a well-renowned top 5 in the world. What age bracket are they? The top 5 people in the world.
So the top lads that do mountain biking are all like these little fuckers that are in their 20s.
Okay.
But no, there's a couple of lads like the main downhill fellas. They'll be like late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
But then there's like the lads I was telling you about that are over there that I was doing like the Gravity Summer Camp in Whistler. They're in their 30s and 40s, and there's like it doesn't matter. I think when you get to an age, you definitely do lose your nerve a little bit if you have a bad crash. And I lost my nerve for a while. I lost it for, say, 3 or 6 months after that crash, but constantly get back moving again. And that was like into early this year. But now, after all the training, like I'm back on form with my bike, flying around things, taking things on. There's very little things that will faze me or that I won't size up and do eventually. But I think it's a case of, as I go now, I'll keep biking away. But I definitely think as I get older, will I be as intensive? No, but I'll still enjoy going out for a spin on my bike, and there's places where you can go and you can go for a leisurely spin and kind of just still be out there. It's my sport. It's the way some lads look at football, the way some lads look at whatever sport it's in. And more recently what I've got into is now rock climbing as well, something that me and my daughter do together, and that's really enjoyable. But again, there's something where it's inside me where I'm just totally into that kind of adrenaline, I don't want to say not traditional kind of sports, but do you know what I mean? Like I like sports that have a bit of an edge to it. Like,
there's 2 things that you actually mentioned that there's parallels between the last guest I had on, a guy called Roger Dardis, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and just an absolute across the board animal on the mat, and a really, really cool, really sound lad. But he said something that resonated with me, having an MMA background, and it was, what was it? It was the meditative nature of sparring. And I think there's a touch of that when you're fucking rattling down the side of a mountain at 100 miles an hour with fucking trees and chainsaws and everything else. And even when you're just doing a bit of training, because when you're going down anything at speed and anything can go wrong in a split second, the one thing that you're fucking certainly not doing is worrying about what ourself is going to say to you when you get home, or
what was that email in the morning, or
exactly, all that shit is just, it's not even in the back of your mind. It just it doesn't exist, because the second it's total detachment. And that's really meditative, because my understanding of meditation, not that I'm a practitioner of it by any stretch of the imagination, but the idea being that you get yourself into a quiet room, you get yourself comfortable, and you focus on something, your breath or whatever it is, and the goal is to, I suppose, forget yourself, to kind of lose yourself, and to, I don't know, be in the moment, or I don't know what the right terminology is, but it's essentially just to focus in on something to the point whereby you're not worried about the bills and everything else, and you don't have any anxiety and you don't have any anger, and you're just at peace for as long as you can kind of sustain it. And when you're sparring either in MMA or in BJJ, or if you're flying down the side of a mountain, it's essentially the same thing. It's a break for your brain from just life in general.
Yeah, I actually heard, I was watching, and I think you're 100% right, because I was watching, and I've always just had that, I've always had that understanding of it, not because I read it somewhere, because I knew it was for me, it was the actual fact. And then from talking to other people that they experience the same thing, that when you're in it, it's in the now and you're living it, and it's exactly what you were saying. Now, I was watching something, I actually have it recorded, and I meant to watch it back. I was actually watching a big fucking Red Bull mountain bike thing. It's thing called Rampage, and it's this really extreme, it's the most extreme version of it, where basically they're over in Colorado, and they're literally throwing themselves down off the side of mountains, and they're doing like canyon jumps that are like 150 meters wide, and it's just like
150 meters,
not 150 meters, maybe 50 meters. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, 150 foot. Fuck yeah,
150 foot. So yeah, so it's
that's
like
all.
Nothing. Sissies, like, but like they're doing these massive canyon jumps, and they're like, it's bringing the sport to the next level, and there's only like maybe 20 lads that get into the event that can do it, and it's very, very, like, it's like if they crash, they're dead kind of stuff, like.
But that's not far off what you're fucking doing. You get the bad side of a fucking tree, and
there's a bit that you can hit the neck, like, and it's grand, but it's just it'd be grand. But I just don't think about it like that. So anyway, you just get out, you just do it. But You do it because you just don't think about it. So I don't think about, I suppose, and you think I am always just a couple of inches away from a tree. I'm always a couple of inches away from doing something. I've a few times where it goes a little bit wrong, and then I've had to do ninja rolls down the side of a rock, and it's just, it is what it is. But you learn how to handle yourself, and when you come off, you know how to handle the fall. And it's like if you're fighting, you're doing UFC or whatever like that, you know how to take a punch, and it's just you learn how to roll with the punches.
Yeah,
you know, and I think that comes with it as well. So you don't just learn; you learn everything about it. You start off by learning by making small mistakes and having small crashes, and then you learn how to go faster, and you learn how to handle big crashes. I've never thought of it in that way, and literally just as I sit here talk about it now, I suppose that's what it is. When you're doing something, you're developing a skill. Your every aspect of that skill develops with you along the way, and you learn how to handle yourself and know how to look after yourself in every way. And I suppose the point I wanted to make about the thing is that I was watching that show about the Mad Red Bull race, and one of the lads came on, and they were asking, like, why do lads do this? What is it that makes them able to push the limits? And he actually said, now, and he had a term for it, and it kills me that I can't remember the name for the term, but it's actually called front-minded concentration. And it's basically what it is that when you're able to do something, and when you do meditation, like what you were saying a second ago, it's like, it's a case of you meditate on something and you basically force everything to the front of your head and to the front of your brain, and you focus it on. And seemingly that is a really powerful skill. And as people are able to do that, what you're able to do is you're able to focus your concentration and to zone it into one area and focus on one particular thing. But it also makes you creative, and it also makes you more daring. So it makes perfect sense that people who do extreme sports or focus, or be it fighting or whatever it might be, they have to be focused 100% on what they're doing, because if they don't, and I say Formula 1 drivers have this as well, where there's completely nothing else around them.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, tunnel vision, and you just hear it, and it just totally focuses, and it actually puts the rest of your mind at ease. The rest of your mind is just switched off, it's calm, it's relaxed, all those synapses that are going all the time, they're like, whoa. And it's just like that, it's just silence. And because everything you're doing is just focusing on what you're doing at that time, and it's surreal. I have done races, and I've come down, and someone goes, "Did you hear those lunatics up there?" Or, you know, you get downstairs, or you get down to the bottom thing, and everyone's like, sure, everyone's like shouting this, or you watch back a GoPro video, especially when you watch back a GoPro video. So I'd have a GoPro on my helmet, or I might have it on my chest. And you come down, you watch the video, and then when you're watching it through, you can't believe how much noise there is in it, of people cheering you on,
that you didn't hear.
You just don't hear it.
Yeah, it's not that it's not there.
It's not that it's there, and you might actually you hear it, but you don't hear it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
And you come through, and it's just like, and that's racing, and that's what gets it for me. And it's like, I go out all the time, and I go out with lads, and obviously, I better my skill by going out more regularly and everything else. But where I really better my skill is that I'm racing more and more regular. So I was racing nearly every month, and every one of those races, I learned something about myself and about how to handle myself on my bike. And this year has been a big year. And next year, I hope to go back, and where I came fifth, I hope to win the title and go back and really push it.
Savage. And when is that? Or?
Racing season starts in February and March kind of time. So next year I'll race the downhill series, the IDMS. That will be the Irish downhill mountain biking series. So I'll be racing that. That's the one where I'll be most competitive. But what I'll also do to keep my skills up is I'll race, there's 2 enduro series. One is called Grassroots. I'll be racing in that again, but just more to keep me focused. And then I'll also be doing the gravity. But the one I'll be going in to compete most is the downhill season.
And looking to win on a national level.
Yeah.
Who's the current champ?
Oh, there's different things. So there's like different masters. So there's one lad that's in Masters 30s, Ian Coates. He's done very well for himself. He's managing that. Then there's another fella. There's another lad called Jacob, who's national champ at the moment. He's sponsored. He's racing at world level.
I was going to get to that. I'm going to go ahead and hope that you've got a big, massive done deal sign on your front and back.
Not at all. I don't have anything like that. So it's a case of I'm just doing it. Like, so I do get slagged. Like I have grown my Instagram followers over the last while and everything else, and I put up a lot of content and all that. And maybe further down the road that, like, I don't want someone to sponsor me where they give me money or anything like that type of stuff. But because the bikes are so expensive, that Like the bike I have at the moment is for enduro racing, and there's specific type of mountain bike rig you can get for downhill racing. I can't afford to go out and buy one of them, and if someone wanted to sponsor me one of those bikes where they kind of gave me the bike and let me use it for the race season, then happy days. I'd be more than happy to wear their jersey and do that. And that's a pretty done thing in Ireland, in the racing league, where basically you have bikes and they're kind of sponsored, or you get 50% off the bike. And if I can get one of those, then yeah, I'll shout about their shop or whatever else on Instagram, and that would be great. It's kind of like sponsored riding, but it means I'd have the bike that would let me be more competitive. Can I afford to have a second downhill bike at the moment? Not at the moment. I have too many other things going on outside my life. So, but I would like to get to that level.
You're over the motoring section of, let's say, Dundee. The cycling section is a big section. Is there someone in here that can put you in touch with manufacturers? Or?
Oh no, it's like I know all the people from racing. I know all the main. It's not even the manufacturers. It's like there's key mountain bike shops. I think learn to walk before you run. And I think it's a case of, I've had my first good year of mountain biking in downhill racing. Literally my first full season where I made it to every race in the downhill season. Before that, I was doing it sporadically. So I think next year I'm gonna bring my training up again. So last year I really focused on my training for the first time, where I was going to the gym regularly, I was doing it, I was eating healthy, I wasn't taking the piss, I wasn't indulging too much in alcohol or getting pissed the week before a race. I was really focused on it. So I think what I will do is I'll do that again this year, but I'm gonna bring it to the next level. I'm gonna really go out there, and hopefully next year I'll get my I still haven't had my first podium. So I think when I get my first podium and I get a couple of podiums, then I might say I'll go to a bike shop and say, here, what's the crack? Do you think there's something we could do here? Will you help me with a bike? I'll shout about your name. So the plan is to just do it another year as I am doing it. But to be honest with you, I'm not doing it to get sponsorship. But if I can get a bike, yeah, I'll take one. But I'm not going on this journey to be the top of at the mountain bike and to engross myself in it over the next 3 or 4 years where I come out on top. I'm not doing that to get the sponsorship or the likes. I'm doing that because I personally just want to do that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's commendable, and I don't think you can do. Somebody who doesn't genuinely want to do it can't kind of decide that this is what they're going to do. No. You need
if you're going on to do it for the fucking the bits and pieces that come with it, then it's never going to work out.
Well, this is kind of morphing into a very similar conversation I had with another previous guest of mine, Graham Mackin. Graham is an endurance athlete, and cycling, I think, was his first love. He did Race Across America. I don't know if you follow kind of road cycling at all, but he was one half of the first 2-man team to complete the Race Across America. Wow. And Mackin's fucking lunatic. The man's as crazy as you. He's signed up in 2020. Since the podcast he was telling me, he signed up to do a race in 2020. It's called Arch to Arc, and it's a race. It's a triathlon from the Marble Arch in London. So it's an 86-mile run, I think, to the coast. Swim the channel as you do, and then cycle from the coast to the Arc de Triomphe. So that's the race he's doing, and he wants to. He's a lunatic. He wants to row to the States and all this kind of fucking nonsense.
That'd be some swim after running that amount of distance, wouldn't it?
86 miles as fast as you fucking can. A marathon's 26 miles? I think it's 86 miles. So
an Ironman,
4 back. That's pisses all over an Ironman. Yeah. An Ironman doesn't have a look in. At the end of an Ironman, there's a marathon. This starts with 4 back-to-back marathons, and it's point to point. So there's no, you do the run and then you have an 8-hour kip or whatever. You get to the channel and you swim that, and then you have a fucking whatever it is, 150 odd mile race.
Shattered.
But the similarity between you and him and the conversation that we had was, I was getting onto him to pull his fucking finger out and get a dedicated, Graham Mackin endurance athlete Facebook page on Instagram and the whole lot. And he's I suppose very similar to yourself. He's doing it because he fucking loves it.
Yeah. I don't think you need that. I see where you're going with it.
You don't need it, but I mean, if you can get fucking sponsored by...
Why?
Why not?
Because I'm doing it on my own bat. It's my hobby. It's my passion.
But you're not taking it as seriously as you'd like it to, because you can't afford a bike. or the gear or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a fair point. But I think at the level I'm doing it at the National League, that if it's a case if I was to start taking, say for instance, I wanted to start going over. So say if I hammered out of it, I do really well in the Irish League, and then I want to start going over and racing in England. And if it's a case of someone to sponsor me and then pay for to get back and forth to all the races, then happy days. That would be great. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I'm not at that level yet. And it's like, even the way I conduct myself in business, it's a case of that it's not that I wait till the moment is right where we'll most easy win the client over or anything like that, but you have to know when it's a case of that you build up the planning in the background and you approach it in the right way. And I just have the same outlook when it comes to my own self. So the way I am, the way my dealings with the way I clients is the way I look at my own life. And it's a case, I'm at a stage now where like, right, I did this last year, I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it like maybe 5 times better. And I'm going to do it because I know where I fell down. I raced, every time I did a race this year, I'd never raced any of those trails before. They were all completely blind. I went into something where I'd never done it before, didn't know what to expect, didn't have the bike set up the right way to have at times, should have had different types of tyres with me, should have had different types of rain jackets, should have had all these different things that I didn't have. I literally did it on the fucking whim of just passing comments of what other people said to do. But now I'm going back into this year, and if I can come top 5 and do it on the thing, well then next year's going to be fucking cracking. And I'm going to be really competitive next year. And I'm going to learn how to look at the trails. I'm going to know the difference in that, making sure the bike is set up properly before each race and not be lazy. And there's so many different things that happen where if I had just given the bike a little bit more care and attention and looked after it properly before going into races, I would have done better.
And yourself with diet and the drink and whatever else.
Yeah. And get myself tuned up and do it as another year. But going to someone now and saying, it gives a bit of sponsorship, why?
Well, maybe not the sponsorship then, but definitely the dedicated Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. The Simon Andreucetti racer stuff.
Yeah, well, I have the Instagram. I have my own Instagram page, and that serves its purpose of putting up things. And it's a case of I put it up, and it's all about my biking. And the great thing about the mountain biking and racing is that there's always loads of photographers at the races, so they're always at key dates where you're kind of doing big jumps, or you're up in the air, or you're getting a fast corner, and they're proper photographs of you coming down trails. And I have all those images and that content up on my Instagram page, and it serves well, and it gets really, really great engagement. And it's the type of stuff that I go onto Instagram liking is the stuff I have of myself, and it's great to have that off those races.
Right, well, here's one for you.
Wow.
I'm going to use one of those images as the icon for this episode, say.
Okay.
And I could just take out the phone and take a photo of you now. But the kind of professional photo of you, 40 foot off the ground, flying by at 100 miles an hour, it's a better photo to use.
Yeah.
And I'm doing these podcasts because I love doing it. I love having these conversations. I'm having an amazing conversation with you. I've had amazing conversations with all the other lads, and I hope to continue doing that and do more of them and all the rest of it. And I'm not looking for sponsorship in the same way that you're not looking for sponsorship. That might come down the road. We'll tackle that when it comes. But in the same way that I could just take a picture of you and put it up as the profile, I won't. I'll use the right image.
Yeah.
When I'm in the process of setting up my YouTube channel at the minute, and I have to be very careful about how I do that. And I'm getting help from friends of mine, younger friends of mine that fucking know what the fuck they're talking about.
15 and 16-year-olds.
Exactly, yeah. So just as an example of kind of doing things right, which you fucking know inside out. You're a man that does things right. I uploaded 4 or 5 videos. I converted these podcasts into videos to upload them onto YouTube, and I had them saved as public on YouTube for the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks as I kept kind of tweaking things and changing things around and getting a bit of imagery done and whatever else. And a friend of mine, Des Seaprasad, I'll hopefully have him on, said, okay, well, first of all, you can just delete that entire account. And I was like, why? And he goes, they're public. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, I haven't promoted it, so no one's seen it, so it doesn't matter if it had 2 views or something from God knows where, probably me. And I was like, well, what difference does it make? And he said, no, but the way the YouTube algorithms work, they see a page that's been live 3 weeks, it has 4 videos on it, they're all 2 or 3 hours long, and no one's watching it. So you're out of the runnings. So I had to delete that, start from scratch, save them all as private until the time was right, and it's doing it right. It's doing it the right way. Now, my main motivation for doing this is because I fucking love doing it. It's because I want to have and spread these types of conversations. I want to open up people like you.
It's great being a part of it. It's great doing it. Like as well.
It's
really
great.
enjoyable.
And to me, there's an obligation on you to get the social media element of it right, to put it in front of more people, to give them an alternative to fucking Coronation Street or Juju Juice or whatever the fuck your one is called.
Jojo Juice.
Jojo Juice. Close. It was close. But you know what I mean? I think there's an onus on people like you, to especially you, above and beyond fucking everyone else that I can think of that has that social media savviness, to promote yourself, to put yourself in front of more people, to inspire people. Because you're not, you know, your parents aren't billionaires. Do you know that kind of way? You didn't grow up skiing in the Alps, and that's not what brought you to mountain biking. Do you know that kind of way? So I think that there's almost a responsibility, if not to use too strong a word, on people like you and the other people I'm having these conversations with to, I suppose, put their best foot forward and promote themselves and promote their sport. Downhill mountain bike racing. Who the fuck even knew that was a thing? Do you know what I mean? I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
I would imagine the overwhelming majority of people listening wouldn't have had a clue. And in case I forget, you mentioned the club in Wexford. Give them a plug. Who are they? How do beginners get involved?
So the great thing about mountain biking, no matter what level you're at, you can basically join in. It's like when a race rocks up into your town or your county, you can literally enter, and there's loads of different categories to bring people into the sport. In the same way I started mountain biking. Now, obviously, I did in downhill racing, so I did quite well in downhill racing because I've been racing for 3 years now in a different kind of discipline. But Bree Racing, so B-R-E-E Racing, you'll find them on Facebook. There's a public page. We have our own private page, but there's a public page to find them. But then if you're in Dublin, there's clubs like Bike and Dirty, which is a really well-known shop. There's MAD, which is Mountain Biking Association of Dublin. So there's loads of different clubs. Literally just look them up, and they're all, like, the one thing about mountain biking is they all have, it's such a community sport. No matter where you are in the country, there is a mountain biking club there somewhere, and we all race at the same events throughout the summer.
Savage. And like in relation to like gear or that someone's starting out, like you need a bike, or do you? Like do these places rent them out or what?
No, you can go to places like you can rent them out. So if you want to look at places to kind of get into the sport, to rent a biking out, there's two key places you can go to. One is biking.ie, which is also, they have a place you can rent bikes in Limerick and also in Dublin. And then if you're in Dublin and you want to, or close to Dublin, there's one place you can go to, which is the Gap, which is Glencullen Adventure Park, and you can rent a bike up there, and it's like a bike park, and they have, it's like skiing. They have blue, red, and black. Blue being the easiest, black being the most difficult and skill. And you can go up, and literally anybody of any age can go up and test it out, and there's all different level and grades. And the lads up there, Brennan, all the lads look after you. Like, so there's a mountain bike park up in Rostrevor where the local council just spent £400,000 building it up over the last couple of years. It's a big sport. And then in Tipperary, you've got a place called Bike Park Ireland, which again is a place where you can go mountain biking. And both Bike Park Ireland, the place in Dublin, the Gap, and the place up in the north called Rostrevor, they're all places where you can go rent a bike, and you can buy an uplift pass. So basically someone will drive you to the top of the mountain, and you just have to cycle back down the mountain, do the fun bit, and then they drive you back up to the top, and you come back down, you drive back up to the top, and you come down, and you just keep doing it all day long. You don't even have to cycle up a fucking hill.
You lazy fuck.
Yeah, if you just want to get into it really lazy, because you can go mountain biking and you don't even have to cycle up a hill.
But the beauty of that, I think, is for somebody that might be listening to this going, geez, I'd love to be able to do that, but I'd never be fit enough to.
Yeah, so you can get into it. Like what I'd say to you is, if you are going to get into it, take advantage of the Cycle to Work scheme. Get yourself a mountain bike. Get yourself something that, even if you're not going to get into mountain biking, that's a bike that you can still use to go for a leisurely cycle. You'll pick yourself a good bike up for €500 or €600, and then you can go for a cycle, and just literally don't ever take on it. Stick to the places where, go on to biking.ie. It'll show you all the places that have been built up by Quelcha. Quelcha is the forestry, and they are in charge of the trails around the country, and they have plenty of trails that are family trails where you can go out and take them on. And the rule is, the faster you go, the trickier it is. So just stay at your own pace, like, and you'll be fine.
Right, Savage. Your own Instagram, what is it if anyone's interested?
So if you want to find me on Instagram, it's just my full name. So it's Simon Andreucetti.
Oh, that's a handy one.
Yeah, Andreucetti. So it's Andreucetti. and if I'm the only person on the internet with my name.
Full stop.
That's it. And I think it's quite unique. So be it Google, Facebook, anything else, nobody has my first and second name. No, there is no other Simon Andreucetti out there. So you'll find me fairly handy if you do come looking.
Simon Andreucetti, you're one of a kind in more ways than one.
You're very welcome.
And
so are you, Fran.
Huh?
So are you. You're a beautiful man.
You're too
You're a
kind.
beautiful man.
You're too kind.
Man.
Brother, it's been an absolute pleasure having you
Thank you
on.
very much.
I'll hope to have you on again, maybe after you are the national champion.
Or a cyber psychologist.
Or a cyber psychologist.
Whichever comes first. Maybe they'll both come around at the same time. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, and thanks very much for having me on.
Thanks again.
No worries.
Cheers, brother.
Amazing.
So that was episode 8 of the Off the Lead podcast with Simon Mad Bastard Andreucetti. A shocking sound fella. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that I had with him, as I have done all my other guests. And if you're enjoying these conversations, let me know. The email address for the podcast is imoffthelead@gmail.com. So imoffthelead@gmail.com. I guarantee you that I'll reply to absolutely anyone and everyone that sends me an email. Let me know what you think. What do you like? What do you not like? Are they too long? Are they too short? Am I doing too many? Am I not doing enough? Maybe you'd like to come on. Maybe you know someone that would be good to talk to. Maybe you have a topic that you might like to hear me discuss, either with you or someone else that you think might be good. Again, the email address is imoffthelead@gmail.com. I'll reply to anyone and everyone who sends me an email. And if you're regularly listening, so this is to anyone out there who is listening to these on an ongoing basis. If you're enjoying them, if you're looking forward to the next one, say, then I want to hear from you. I genuinely do want to hear from you, even if it's just to say, well done, or who's next, or, what's in the pipeline, because I've big plans for this. It's not even a podcast. I don't know what it is, being perfectly honest with you. It's almost like it's a philosophy or a movement or I don't know, maybe a cult, or God knows what it is or will become, but I'm really enjoying the journey, and I hope that regular listeners will come with me on that journey and will be part of the journey and will help me progress this, whatever it is, on and move it forward from strength to strength. It's been great. I'm thoroughly enjoying doing it. I'm looking forward to a couple of the things that I have in the pipeline, which I'll announce soon enough. Maybe you'd like to hear me do a solo one. Maybe you'd like to hear a discussion between 2, 3, maybe even 4 people. I don't know how I'd work that with mics, but look, let me know your thoughts. imoffthelead@gmail.com is where you'll get me. And thanks for listening.